Welcome back to day 2 of the Ultimate Human Detox Challenge. I'm Gary Brecka, and if you were with us yesterday, you already understand something that most people never figure out. Your symptoms are not the problem. They're the messenger, right? When you use those messages to go back and find out what the root cause is. So I want to take a moment to just thank everybody for taking time out of your day and your busy schedules to join me and really putting your health first. I'm really excited to delve in today. I'm excited for Dr. Jessica Petros, who'll be on here in about 15 minutes. Yesterday, for those of you that were with us or that weren't, we had Dr. Will B., Dr. Buskowitz, a gastroenterologist. You discovered the game-changing truth that most detoxes fail because people mobilize toxins without opening their drainage pathways first. I'm going to go back over that today. We have to have the body in a position to throw the trash out before we actually start trying to eliminate that waste. Very often when you do a cleanse, a liver cleanse, a colon cleanse, a gut detox, what happens is those toxins that are trapped in what we call phase 1 detox actually go back into the bloodstream and make you sick. I had so many people in the chat yesterday talking about, and in our VIP community talking about how, they've done detoxes and broken out into rashes. They've gotten throat closure. They've gotten congestion. They've gotten severe headaches. They actually had, some people got nauseous. And the person that was encouraging them to do the detox said, oh, that's the sign that all the toxins are leaving your body. That's not true. That's a sign that those toxins are going back into your body. And so what we want to do is we want to be intelligent about how we detoxify. I'm actually going to share with you today my own personal results. This is a very personal journey for me. I'm an incessant tester of things. And I test my red light beds, I test my hyperbarics, I send all of my supplements out for testing. I made the mistake last year of trusting a physician. I won't throw him under the bus on this on this Zoom, but I made the mistake last year of trusting a physician that encouraged me to get a special water filtration system that was restructuring the water. And basically what this system was, it was a glorified Chinese welding machine. And it was not certified for human consumption or to produce water. And the first time that I consumed the water from this, because it was, very high in pH, it had very high amounts of hydrogen gas in it, I actually felt great. And so my son and I at the time were preparing for the Great World Race, 7 marathons on 7 continents in 7 days. I went all in on this water. And I drank 4 or 5 liters of it a day. I used it in the sauna. I consumed almost entirely water from this machine that I had not tested because I hadn't had the time. Based on the qualifications of this particular individual, I just trusted what he was telling me. Thankfully, I never shared this with the outside world. I never put this into my VIP community. I never talked about it on social media. As it turns out, the components of this glorified welder were fraught with heavy metal. And I got severe heavy metal toxicity. And I'm going to show you my results. They're off the charts. My son got it. I got it. My house manager got it. My wife, Sage, even my daughter, Madison. And you could actually take the water that I tested from this machine and compare it directly to our results on the Vibrant Wellness Test, and the exact metals that were being created, the aluminums, the thalliums, the mercury, the lead, the tins, were all off the charts. All of our test results were superimposable, and they correlated exactly to the metals that were coming out of this particular machine. Now, that's what's called an acute toxicity, but I want to show you how toxic we were and how in a few months I got all of those metals back down into the green. I did the most advanced testing you can do, which is called a provoked urine test, which is where they actually run a chelating agent to draw metals out of your tissue into the blood and into your urine. You test your urine for the next 8 hours. So I'm going to show you, because so many of you are facing mold toxicity, mycotoxins, heavy metals, parasites, or viruses, and you feel kind of hopeless. And you don't know exactly what direction to go. So I'm going to show you exactly what I did. I'm going to share the exact protocol that I did. Every single one of you has access to this. This is not like expensive machinery. I did do some in-clinic treatments like ozone and EBO2, but the majority of what I was able to accomplish this with are exactly what I'm going to teach you about today, which is opening your drainage pathways, flushing your kidneys, getting your colon moving regularly, sweating on a regular basis, diaphragmatic breathing to get your lymph system moving, mobility to keep that lymphatic flow going, and then adding the modalities like ozone and EBO2 because I happen to have acute toxicity at that time. But first, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd love to know how you felt waking up this morning. On a scale of 1 to 10, just type it into the chat. I want to get you guys engaged. Tell me how you felt waking up this morning. You learned yesterday that detox is not a trend, it's a system. Your body has 5 core detox pathways, and we're going to go back over all of those. Your liver's phase 1 and phase 2 detox, and this is where most detoxification goes wrong. We don't want to release the trapped toxins from phase 1 back into the bloodstream. We want to clear the inert toxins, inert means harmless toxins, from phase 2 liver detox and put those back into the colon so the liver can actually flow a lot more efficiently. We learned that bile production and flow, your lymphatic system, which is not just your lymphatic system here, but your inguinal lymph nodes, your axillary lymph nodes, the lymph nodes that surround your diaphragm, which is why, guys, diaphragmatic breathing, the more intense breathing that Wim Hof was the pioneer of, can help move that lymphatic system. Colon elimination, actually stool. We talked a lot about pooping yesterday. And your brain's lymphatic system, the one in your brain that only works when you get deep phases of sleep. Why is sleep so important? It's not the length of your sleep, it's the depth of your sleep. So when you're getting good REM sleep, you're assembling your memories, learned memory from the day, taking your prefrontal cortex, matching it to the hippocampus, and the things that you learned or tasks that you encountered that day solidify during REM sleep. The deep phases of sleep are extraordinarily important because while we have a lymphatic system in the body, we have a glymphatic system in the brain. And the glymphatic system is the waste elimination pathway for your brain. This is why you feel foggy, you have headaches, you have poor focus, you have poor concentration when you actually don't get deep sleep. When you feel refreshed after getting adequate amounts of deep sleep, that's not only because you spent the proper amount of time in bed, it's because the glymphatic system, the waste elimination system of the brain, was active. Believe it or not, it's a physiological fact. Your brain swells during the day and it actually loses that swelling at night to open up these channels. I have a whole paper that I wrote on this that's available inside of my VIP chat if you're interested in going deeper into sleep. I wrote an entire sleep guide. I'm going to touch on the highlights of it today. But if you want more and you want an exact sleep guide on how you can deepen and improve your REM sleep, there is a guide available to VIPs in the VIP chat. In the VIP membership. So lymphatics, colon, waste elimination, your brain's glymphatic system, your kidneys, sweat, breath work. These are all ways that we're going to begin to activate our natural detoxification pathways, our waste elimination pathways, before we go into our tissues and start to dump a bunch of mold or mycotoxins or heavy metals or parasites or viruses into our bloodstream. So most importantly, I hope that we opened your eyes to the truth. You can't detox if your drainage pathways aren't open first. It's that simple. If you're constipated, it doesn't work. If you're not breathing, it doesn't work. If you're not sweating, it doesn't work. So I'm going to go to the whiteboard. Do you guys, can I go to the whiteboard? All right, I've got to ask my team if they're ready. I'm going to go over this here in a moment today, but what I want to do is just give you a quick review of what we did yesterday. And do you one of my just illustrious drawings. I always say, guys, I am a scientist, not an artist. My son is an artist, but not me. Okay, so that's you, right? If you're a woman, that's you. So we talked yesterday about all of the major pathways in the body that we use to get waste, where waste collects in the body. And then today we're going to talk about how we get it out. We talked about the liver yesterday, phase 1 and phase 2 detox. We talked about the importance of phase 1, which is actually where the waste from your blood is being trapped by the liver And this is the phase where it has not yet been converted into something that can be eliminated. So phase 1 detox in the liver is very important. I'm going to come back to that in a second. And then we also talked about phase 2. Phase 2 is where the waste from the liver is eliminated through the colon. Okay, this goes into the gallbladder as bile, and then bile is secreted into the colon, generally in response to meals that have fat, and then that bile is carried out through stool in your urine. I want to just highlight phase 1 for a moment because we talked about what supports phase 1 liver detox. Okay, here's what's important. Phase 1 liver detox is supported by the following supplements and the following nutrients. I can't emphasize these enough. By the way, you do not need to buy any of the supplements I've recommended. If you have a favorite brand like Thorne or Pure Encapsulations or Symbiotica, stick with those brands. I'm just going to tell you which supplements that you want to focus on within those brands. If you want my recommendations, you can click on those in the guide. But the idea here is to get the right supplement, not the right manufacturer. So NAC, this is called N-acetylcysteine. This is a widely available supplement. It's very inexpensive. This is a must-have for phase 1 liver detox. The second thing that you need, and you should all be taking this, by the way, is a methylated, this word is important, multivitamin. And the reason why I want you to take a methylated multivitamin is that whether you know your genetic profile or you don't, there's a 50% chance that you have a gene mutation called MTHFR, affectionately called the motherfucker gene. Can I say that on YouTube? Again? Okay. Team said that's fine. It stands for methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase. It is the most common gene mutation in the world. If you haven't tested for it, do not worry about it. But methylated multivitamins are multivitamins that have already been converted to the bioavailable form. You'll see that these vitamins do not contain folic acid. They do not contain a form of B12 called cyanocobalamin. Those are two I want you to permanently avoid in any supplement that you're taking. So look for this word methylated multi. Lots of manufacturers make a great methylated multi. I designed one called Optimize, but several brands make really excellent multivitamins, and they have the entire complex of B vitamins. Because in phase 1 detox, we're going to take a toxin, right? And we're essentially going to methylate that toxin into something that is called inert, which means that it becomes harmless, inert carbons. And so this requires N-acetylcysteine. It requires methylated multivitamins. You can also add something called glutathione. Glutathione is the master antioxidant in the human body. It's actually made by the liver. Glutathione resides inside of every single cell in your body. There is not a single cell in your entire body that does not contain glutathione. So just think about how important that is to cellular waste elimination. A lot of what we talk about in detox isn't just urine, sweat, and stool. A lot of what we're talking about is inside the body. It's cellular waste. Cells are like kids. They're dirty. They make a mess. They don't clean their room. And just in the activity of going through cellular metabolism, they throw out a lot of waste. This waste are called cytokines. They're inflammatory compounds, interleukins, histamines, these different types of inflammatory factors, and these cause symptoms. Glutathione, which is made by the liver and resides inside of every single cell in your body, is the major waste elimination antioxidant in the human body. I take a liposomal form of glutathione so that it gets through first pass metabolism. But again, if you have a favorite manufacturer, make sure that your glutathione is either being administered through IV, through a patch, through a sublingual, or through a liposomal version. Taking glutathione orally in any other fashion will render the glutathione useless because it does not survive first pass metabolism. So look for the word liposomal. Okay. Basically what this means is that the glutathione is inside of a liposome, which for lack of better words is a fat molecule. It's a phospholipid, and the glutathione is embedded inside of that phospholipid. So it actually passes through the digestive tract. And remember what happens when you leave the stomach. Bile is secreted in response to fat. So if glutathione is inside of a liposome, when it exits your stomach, it's still intact, and then the bile will dissolve the liposome, will dissolve that fat layer, and the glutathione will absorb into your body. A lot of times, when I'm talking about supplements, I'm just trying to give you some guidance on, which is the best form so that it makes it into your body. The last thing that you need are amino acids. You know that I like to take Perfect Aminos. You do not need to take that brand, but you want to make sure that you have all of the essential amino acids. One of the things that we learned about yesterday is that amino acids are not proteins. Okay, amino acids are the building blocks of proteins. So when you're deficient in certain amino acids, you're deficient in not only the building blocks of proteins, but the building blocks of neurotransmitters. Because when we talk about mood and emotion, for example, that requires serotonin. It's the main driver of mood. Guess what serotonin's made from? It's made from an amino acid called tryptophan. When we talk about behavior, dopamine is the main driver of behavior. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter that's made from the amino acids phenylalanine and tyrosine. So amino acid deficiencies, these are not protein deficiencies. They are amino acid deficiencies. We build almost everything in the human body from amino acids. We like to think of amino acids because they build muscle, which is very true, but we also build our natural killer cells, our connective tissue. So when you're amino acid deficient, it wreaks havoc on the body. Also, if you're amino acid deficient and you're not building healthy neurotransmitters, it slows down the pace of your gut. Yesterday, we talked about the fact that in 200,000 patients that came through our clinic system, I never once saw a patient that reported suffering from anxiety that did not also have gut issues. Why? Because serotonin drives mood and emotion. It also drives the motility of our gut. So those are your basics for phase one liver detox. Now let's go on to our lungs. That is another way that we eliminate toxin is through our lungs. And one of the best ways to get our lungs going is diaphragmatic breathing. Diaphragmatic breathing. I read a statistic. I don't know how true it is. It wasn't from a clinical study, but I read a statistic that after the age of 30, 90% of people will never sprint again for the rest of their life. And why is that important? Because when we sprint, we use our auxiliary muscles of respiration. We use our intercostals. We use our diaphragm. We breathe with the lobes of our lungs, not the apex of our lungs. Most of you spend the entire day in a relatively sedentary position. When you do that, you do very shallow breathing. You breathe only with the apex of the lungs. Around your diaphragm is your lymphatic system. So just by waking up in the morning, exposing your skin to sunlight, right? Getting natural light into your eyes and doing diaphragmatic breathing, we can actually start the circulation of lymph. We can exercise our intercostals. I don't want the muscles between your rib cage to atrophy. I want them to be strong. So you get outside, you do 3 rounds of 5 obnoxiously deep breaths, work your way to 3 rounds of 10 obnoxiously deep breaths, and continue to build by 5 breaths every week or so until you work your way up to 30. And when I talk about obnoxiously deep breaths, I mean like you never thought you were going to get another breath, right? You were underwater for 2 minutes and you just broke the surface of the water. Really expanding your rib cage, moving your diaphragm, starting the circulation of lymphatic flow, and getting oxygen into the blood. Sunlight is another just major one, and simple things like walking, which will actually get your lymphatic system moving. So we talked about the lungs. Let's go on to stool, moving our bowels. So we talked about phase 1 liver detox, supplements that are good for phase 1 liver detox. The thing we talked about with Dr. Buskowitz yesterday was separating your supplements so that you're timing them properly. So if we want to talk about the colon and our bowels, You do not want to start a detox protocol unless you are having 1 to 2 bowel movements a day. If you're not having 1 to 2 bowel movements a day, we need to focus on that first before we ever talk about detoxification. Otherwise, these compounds will end up in your colon and they will return themselves back to the bloodstream. What are some of the best ways to get our colon moving? 30 grams of fiber per day, probiotic supplements, biotic supplements. I actually gave some recommendations for ones that I like. I like Dr. Gundry's BioComplete 3. I like the Body Health probiotics. If you have a favorite probiotic supplement manufacturer, stick with them. The one thing I want you to investigate is whether or not your probiotic is made to survive stomach acid. Remember, probiotics are bacteria. The reason why we have a stomach is to kill bacteria. No probiotics can survive stomach acid. So if that capsule is not protected from the stomach acid, you're just swallowing the probiotics and they're bathing in stomach acid and you're passing dead bacteria into the intestine. This is why some studies show amazing results with probiotics and other ones show poor results. So make sure that you have a probiotic that is protected from stomach acid and opens in an alkaline environment, not in an acidic environment. The other one was magnesium. In our clinic system, 85% of all of the patients that we tested with something called a cellular nutrition assay, and these were really healthy patients that were supplementing on a regular basis, 85% of them were deficient in magnesium. I take a supplement at night called Magnesium Breakthrough. It has all 7 forms of magnesium in it. It has improved my sleep. It has absolutely improved my digestion and the regularity of my bowels. But if you're looking for a magnesium supplement, the 2 that I want you to write down are glycinate and citrate. Glycinate and citrate are especially good for bowel movements. And you want to take your magnesiums at night before bed. It also helps to quiet the mind. Again, if you want my supplement recommendations, I gave them to you. If you have a favorite one, make sure that you're choosing the glycinate and citrate versions of those. And then we go over to our kidneys. Okay. Then we go over to our kidneys. The color of your urine is important, right? It should be a pale yellow every time that you urinate. If it is not, if it is a concentrated yellow, you are probably dehydrated. If it's bone white and crystal clear, you are overhydrated. The one thing that our kidneys need, this is the most overlooked thing I believe in all of kidney health, because kidneys don't develop calcium stones, they develop mineral stones because the kidney is desperate for minerals. The kidney is one of the main filters in the body. 15 times a day, all of the blood in your body passes through your kidneys. And so the most important thing here is minerals. And almost 90% of the US population is mineral deficient. And these are not the minerals you probably think of, not potassium, magnesium, and sodium. This is the molybdens, the manganese, the zincs, the silicas, the minerals that we don't like to think about. I take something called Baja Gold sea salt. It is probably the cheapest biohack that I know of. A $10 or $15 bag of that salt will last you 4 or 5 years. I can get it on Amazon. You can also use mineral salts like Redmond or Celtic salt, although I've been reading lots of studies lately that the Celtic salt, because it's gained so much popularity, that the mining process is getting inefficient, and there's heavy metals in those. So minerals and sea salts are great ways to get the minerals that our kidneys need to detoxify. All right. So let's go back to I want to make sure that I reviewed that first. So today's question is simple but powerful. Okay. So what's actually inside you that could be making you sick? Is it mold? Is it heavy metals? Is it a hidden infection? So without the right tests, you're kind of flying blind. So that's why I brought Dr. Jessica Petros on today. If you've ever heard of Dr. Petros, she's seen thousands of cases where people were told everything is normal, only to discover massive toxic loads that explained everything that was going on. So if you're one of those people that's been told that everything's normal, but you still feel off, this is going to be amazing for you. She's going to show you the tests that your regular doctor probably doesn't even know about, and might not even know that they exist, and tests that reveal exactly what's hijacking your health. So, and more importantly, how to use that information to finally get better. So who's excited to have Dr. Petros on? If you could just comment me so I can see you being active in the chat. Oh, I see her. There she is. So Dr. Petros, welcome to the Ultimate Detox Challenge. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to join us today. Let's get right into it.
Sure,
Good to
I'm
see you.
honored. I'm honored, Gary. Thank you for having me. Hi,
Oh,
everyone.
Jessica's amazing. If you missed the podcast that I did with Dr. Petros, please look that one up on the Ultimate Human podcast platform. It's entirely free, but we go way down the road of detoxification. So I have some questions for you before we take questions from our live YouTube audience.
Sure.
If you're watching on YouTube or Zoom, please start submitting your questions for Dr. Petros. My team's going to collect those, and we'll make sure that we answer them before we slip off the live and go over to the VIP chat. So you say that you can't detox what you don't measure. I've heard you say that many times. So what are the most reliable tests for mold and heavy metal toxicity, and what should people avoid?
Absolutely. So, guessing is not healing, my friends. Mold and heavy metals are these kind of mysterious things that we encounter that regular conventional medicine isn't quite on top of just yet. And the way they work is they can deeply embed into tissues and cells. So proper testing is actually really foundational for people. I really lean heavily in my clinic on vibrant wellness, the urine mycotoxin test, the heavy metal panels. These are a staple in what I do every day with people. And the way Vibrant works, these are really highly sensitive mass spectrometry tests that pick up even, that's a mouthful, try saying it three
Yeah.
times. They pick up on low grade chronic exposures that many other blood tests or conventional mainstream tests may miss. And
Okay.
older generation antibody only tests or blood tests, they don't reveal the total body burden. Blood tests, for example, only show acute exposure. Like if you're having an acute mercury poisoning, it'll show it on a blood test. But later on, they burrow into the lymph and fascial tissues and the drainage pathways I heard you so eloquently speaking on. And so the deep stored toxins create chronic symptoms over time. And urine testing, especially sometimes after gentle provocation, depending on the patient, is more revealing than on the long-standing toxic load for people.
Okay, so these environmental toxins, because I'm actually going to share with them before we get off the live today. I accidentally got a toxic load of heavy metals, and as intentional as I am about everything that goes in my body, my air quality, my water quality, I was really embarrassed that I actually gave myself heavy metal poisoning. But I walked myself out of it, and I used the Vibrant Wellness Test to find the metals. And then I used the Vibrant Wellness Test to ensure that I was back in the safe range. But how do environmental toxins like mold and heavy metals interact with hidden infections like Lyme or Epstein-Barr virus? And how do you kind of unravel this complex cases like this? Because I've seen a lot of these where, people that have previous viral infections, let's say you had mono in 8th grade, it comes back as Epstein-Barr as an adult. If you had if you had chickenpox, it will come back as shingles. So very often you're not catching these viruses. You've always had these viruses. So how do toxins like mold and heavy metals interact with these hidden infections?
Great question. I call these guys frenemies in our toxin bucket. They can add up and really fill up your toxin bucket till you're labeled with a chronic illness. And so these guys are toxic best friends. They really gang up together and create biofilms within the body. And the biofilm is like the sticky stuff that's on your teeth when you wake up in the morning. They hide in that.
Mm,
And yeah, and so mold and metals actually suppress immune surveillance and our immune system in general. And that allows these dormant infections to wake back up. You have a fight with your partner and you're stressed out, your work's going crazy, you come down with the cold or the flu. Epstein-Barr is opportunistic. It's probably going to reactivate. It's a little bugger like that. And so when symptoms flare, it's not always from the infection itself, it's the toxic terrain as well. So if you're, like you mentioned, Gary, you said, I just came down with a bunch of heavy metals and it was kind of embarrassing because it can happen to
Very
anyone.
embarrassing. Yeah.
Yeah, it can happen to anyone. And when we're full of toxins like that, the terrain of our body is not clean. And in the environment, things like, yeast or mold, they digest organic waste. And so if you're putrefying your food in your gut, you're probably going to have pathogens there for cleanup because you are part of the ecosystem. And
Mm.
so, I run a bunch of complex tests in these cases, things like sometimes the tick-borne panel, definitely a viral panel, mycotoxin test, and heavy metal testing. And then you map the timeline. It's kind of like a dance. You clear the
Hmm.
toxins gently, you reduce inflammation, and then you tackle the infections that have made your body a cozy home. And you have to look for antecedents and triggers and listen to the patient's story. And this gives you
Mm.
the full picture of what to do.
So what's you talked about, we use that term provoked testing versus unprovoked testing. Could you just give us some insight into what the difference is between a provoked test and an unprovoked test?
Absolutely. If you guys have done urine heavy metal testing before, you've probably heard of provoked versus unprovoked. And I will tell you, this means that when you provoke something, you give something maybe a chelator or a gentle binder, something like glutathione that you've educated your audience on so well, or EDTA. It's something to pull things out of the tissues that have layered there over time. And if you do unprovoked testing, it still works. I do it every day in my clinic, and some of the highest heavy metals I've ever seen on anyone have been unprovoked. But that's like a testing snapshot, if you will.
Hmm.
It's what your body's actively releasing right now. However, provoked testing, like I mentioned with glutathione or EDTA, it gives you the full documentary picture. It pulls things out of the fat, the bone, even the brain, and it helps us understand the true burden that's hidden inside the body. Now,
Yeah.
that said, provocation must be done carefully and in the right order. Because, like you mentioned, if detox or drainage pathways aren't open, you're going to be pulling things out of their hiding places and then they can't leave the body. They can recirculate and stir the pot and really kick up flares and symptoms for people.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, some patients, so we collected a lot of input before this challenge, literally from thousands of people. And I'm sort of paraphrasing, but for patients who feel crazy but have normal blood work, how do functional lab tests give them the clarity and the validation traditional medicine misses?
This is one of my favorite questions because I
Is
have,
it?
yeah, because you don't understand, Gary. I have hundreds of patients come to me on the regular saying that my labs are normal and I feel awful. I feel crazy. What's wrong with me? It must be me because my doctor says everything's fine and I have brain fog and fatigue and I can't get out of bed in the morning and I feel like a shell of the person I used to be. And it's heartbreaking. And that's because in my opinion, conventional labs look for disease, not dysfunction.
Hmm.
Functional tests like Vibrance, Total Tox, and their micronutrient tests and their mycotoxin tests and their heavy metal tests, they look deeper. They look deeper than any test we can get. They show us imbalances in drainage and detox pathways, methylation issues, which you guys know how important that is, gut health, and stored toxins too. And the fatigue, the brain fog, the anxiety, often you're validated. It makes
Hmm.
sense when you see these tests.
Yeah.
And that's reversible once you know the root.
Okay, so if someone, let's say, tests positive for mold toxins, we live in the mold capital of the world, so I'm in
Mm.
Miami, and at some point, myself, my entire family has had mold toxicity. We've tested and gotten back down into the green range now, but my understanding from Dr. Minkoff is that Miami and Malibu, California, of all places, are the two mold capitals of the country. But if someone tests positive for mold toxins, what's the next logical step? Is it environmental testing? Is it targeted detox? Or do they do both?
Absolutely. And you bring up a good point that I just might mention. It doesn't matter how nice your house is, mold can still affect you and your home. It really can. And so
Yep.
I always say a little bit of both, depending on the person and the patient. You really can't detox your way out of a sick building. Can I just say that
Okay.
up front? And the number one rule of environmental medicine is avoidance. And there are some people, and we'll talk about genetics in a minute, that just are more sensitive. And I cannot open drainage and get them better until they're out of the house. So you
I
need to,
agree with you.
yeah, some people can, but not everyone. And I never know who's going to be who unless we do genetic testing. So I start with environmental testing, maybe an ERMI, which stands for Environmental Relative Moldy Index, or a HERTSME. These two tests were developed by the Environmental Protection Agency. And they're a do-it-yourself test at home that you sweep and vacuum, and they tell you the number of mold spores and the type of mold spores. And that's really useful when you want to match up what's on your urine mycotox test in your body to make sure it's the
Hmm.
current house you're living in that's a problem. Sometimes mold can colonize sinus passages or our gut lining and follow us even after we leave the moldy house. So it's really important before you start tearing apart your house to know if it's the current place that's the problem. At the same time, you want to support drainage pathways, sweating, binders if needed, lymphatic support, mineralization, B
Did
vitamins.
you read ahead in my detox guide?
Oh, we're just on the same wavelength, Gary. I don't know what to say. Yeah.
So can you walk us through how to interpret a vibrant wellness mycotoxin test, or let's say that somebody got a mycotoxin or mold test somewhere else. I recommend the Vibrant, but you can use other ones. So can you just walk us through how we interpret this vibrant wellness mycotoxin or heavy metal report, and like what key markers should people be looking at first?
Well, first and foremost, you really, if in an ideal world, we wouldn't want any mold in the red. So just because you have mold in the red, you have to match up symptomatology first. Okay. So match up symptoms before you see everything in the red and start freaking out. But for mold, you want to focus on the pretty infamous ones. That's things like ochratoxin A,
Dude,
leotoxin.
that one is, I got that one. And
That's the one.
interestingly, I traced it back to the coffee and nuts. I was eating a ton of nuts. I was like traveling
Mhm.
with them. I always had them in my bag, but I would store them in those big, I'd buy them in bulk and I would put them in the big glass jars. And sometimes they'd be on my counter for weeks or even months.
Mm,
Um, and the thing is, I want you guys to realize this is really not your fault. I'm about as intentional as any human being could be about my air quality, my water quality, avoiding seed oils. And when I got this toxic report back, I mean, honestly, I was embarrassed. And I just decided to be very vulnerable and transparent about it and say, who better to have it happen to than me, and walk my way out of it. And in our clinic system, we would see this linked back to so many issues that people were suffering from that they just couldn't put a finger on. So, um,
absolutely.
I really want you guys to sound off in the comment section about what you're learning from Dr. Jess in just a few short minutes. And I want to actually dive into the live questions from our viewers on YouTube, because I always want people to be able to ask direct questions. So number one was, I'm wondering if this detox is also applicable if you have leaky gut and SIBO. SIBO
Yeah.
is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, guys. Sorry.
Yes, absolutely. So it is, the first place I start with people, with everyone, is, is your drainage open? Are you pooping regularly, to at least twice a day? It's not, too loose and falling apart in the toilet. I mean, normalize talking about bowel movements, guys. You want to be
Yeah.
sweating within a sauna within 10 to 15 minutes, and it shouldn't be miserable for you guys. It shouldn't wipe you out. You want to really be sleeping somewhat adequately at night.
Wow.
You want your nervous system regulated, because your body won't release toxins when it's contracted. That's why when you're not in rest and digest, you can't poop. So it holds
Yes.
on to toxins. So nervous system regulation, opening drainage, and that's the first step to SIBO, to mold, to heavy metals, to any sort of detox we're going to put you guys through. You have to prep the body.
Mm. Is it
Mhm.
okay to start a detox? This is question number two. Is it okay to start a detox like all the supplements while breastfeeding?
So I would be careful. Personally, in my clinic, I don't give binders or detox too heavily when someone is breastfeeding, because the breast milk is a drainage pathway, you guys.
Mm,
So are cycles for women. And
okay.
yeah,
So
so
do you need a doctor to order or obtain these tests like the Vibrant Wellness Test?
so no, you can actually order through us, I think Gary has an offer, and I do too. And yeah, you guys, for sure, if you run through my
Can
clinic.
you put that link in there? Yeah.
Yeah, please. That would be
Okay.
useful, you guys,
Great.
because you want to look at these. This is the highest and most quality testing that you can get. as a patient, in my opinion. I consistently use Vibra Labs.
Okay. So can my regular primary care physician test for these, or does it need to be from a fancy clinic?
Oh man, that's the biggest problem I have with functional medicine is it isn't as standardized and it isn't as readily accessible as I wish it would be for people. Now, Gary has a great offer where you guys don't need a fancy clinic. You can just order these tests and we'll do lab readouts. You can come to me. I'd be happy to interpret the test for you guys. But your PCP may not know about Vibrant. A lot of these mainstream doctors aren't really into functional testing. So it's a case by case. I would definitely ask just to see.
Yeah. I just want to make a comment too that in our clinic system, in the last year, our clinic director, Dr. Sarda, actually uncovered 3 patients that were actually being treated for Parkinson's symptoms, for Parkinson's disease that did not have Parkinson's. They actually
Ooh.
had chronic viral infections, Lyme and or West Nile virus. And very often, if you look at the symptomology between viruses or parasitic infections or even molds, they mimic the conditions of other much more sinister chronic diseases. And the sad thing is, once you make that decision that, oh, you have Parkinson's, oh, you have ADD, ADHD, you have chronic anxiety, you have, clinical depression. Once that diagnosis is made, now you're on that path for the balance of your lifetime, and you are a depressed person, or you have generalized anxiety, or you have Parkinson's, or you have an autoimmune disease, and your immune system has just gone haywire. And this is one of the messages I really try to get out to the world, that unless your physician can tell you what caused it and say, this was caused from this, then you shouldn't just accept that you have one of these chronic conditions. We should always keep investigating. And lo and behold, you might just find out that you have a very common chronic viral infection, a mold or mycotoxin, or you have severe metal toxicity. So
That is a top level information, you guys. Sarcoidosis is mold, autoimmunity is often parasites. Gary just gave you one of the most important tips that you can have in healthcare. Your label is not root cause. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There's a really interesting study that I'll actually, I think it's actually up on my Instagram, but a really interesting study done on multiple sclerosis patients where they looked at brain biopsies and tissue biopsies in MS patients, and in 100% of them post-mortem, they found the same cestode nematode, the same helminth parasite, this little parasite that burrows into the myelin sheath of the nerve and lights the immune system up. And again, I'm not here to say all multiple sclerosis is parasites, but what I am telling you is if it's idiopathic, if it's of unknown origin, why are we not trying to find out what the origin is? The other question was, is there anything for long COVID? Any
Oh,
tips for long
yes.
COVID?
Oh, yes, you guys. My goodness, I treat this day in and day out. They all have mast cell and histamine problems, almost all of
Mhm.
them. Palpitations, anxiety, insomnia. It's pretty miserable. So you want to look for things that boost nitric oxide, like L-arginine, L-citrulline, beetroot powder. You want to look for things that bust up that biofilm I was talking about, like nattokinase or lumbrikinase. You want to look at
Mhm.
things that help mitochondrial toxicity, which are the little powerhouses of the cell that produce ATP and energy. So you want things like quercetin, vitamin C, glutathione, the master antioxidant, and methylated B vitamins. All of these are like the building blocks that you need for your body to run at peak performance. And if you don't have them, you're going to be not able to have enzymes and cofactors that make you run at peak performance. So yes, absolutely you can reverse long COVID. Absolutely these people can get their lives back all the time.
Mm, I love that. This is another question. What should you treat first, Lyme's or mold? Or can they both be done together?
Honestly, mold. And they can both be done a little bit together, you guys. They can. I have a protocol called Kill, Bind, Sweat, where people take herbal
Kill,
anti
bind, sweat?
kill. It sounds like I'm a crazy
Sounds like a
estrogen
boot
doctor,
camp that I want to go to.
or
Like, sounds like a vicious CrossFit class.
an
Kill,
S&M
bind,
doctor, one
sweat.
of those things. It went viral though because of the name and it's so practical so everyone can do it. Once your drainage is open and you're pooping and you're sweating, you can take an herbal antimicrobial. You can wait 30 minutes and take a binder of your choice, something like zeolite, bentonite clay. My favorites are fulvic and humic acids. And then you
Hmm.
get in the sauna. And so you're killing things off. Your drainage is open, so you're sweating them out and mopping up what you're sweating out. So you're pulling things out of the body. And there's a small study I can show you guys where you can sweat out metals, things like mercury, cadmium,
I,
even
yep,
lead.
totally believe that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I did it myself. I'm going to show you my pre and post results here in a moment, but I did it myself. So please explain, oh boy, how vaccines, where in infancy or as adults, affect your toxicity levels.
Oh boy, loaded question.
Because
Loaded question, but a good one.
YouTube, you're about to get shut down.
Oh boy, yeah. So absolutely, you
The
guys.
feed's going to go dark.
We've been everyone goes out right now. But
Yeah,
no, listen, we've been told they're safe and effective, but everyone's genetics are different. Your genes that are turned on or off are different. It's like a piano keys where the keys are pressed differently on each person, and that's your genes. And so there are some people who don't have the genetics to be able to handle 72 different doses as recommended by the CDC before the age of 18.
I
And
agree.
they just can't. We have to look at people's epigenetics and their changes in their genes before we can say things are safe and effective. In fact, Gardasil has twice the amount of aluminum as most vaccines, and the placebo even has aluminum. So when I tell you that some of the studies are, there may be conflicts of interest, or absolutely they can add to disease for some people, I truly believe that. And I would be
Okay.
lying to you if I told you differently.
I agree with that too. You know, I actually held a symposium on long COVID and vaccine injury. One of the things that we focused on, I don't want to jump the topic too much, was the clearance of spike protein. And
Yes.
people generally fell into three categories: excellent spike protein clearance, no symptoms; vaccinated, boosted, no problems; marginal clearance of spike protein and symptoms that they learn to live with, things like weight gain, water retention, brain fog, poor focus and concentration, occasional tingling and numbness, some fatigue, and then ones that didn't clear it at all. And they had things as severe as myocarditis and pericarditis, trigeminal neuralgias, transverse myelitis, or very severe symptoms that caused them to have to end their careers. And so this has to do with exactly what Dr. Petros is talking about, is how well can your body get rid of these toxins. Everyone on this entire Zoom right now, we could all eat the same amount of mercury-laden tuna fish every single day for 60 days or 90 days. A third of you would have heavy metal toxicity, severe poisoning. A third of you would have mild symptoms, and a third of you would have no symptoms at all, right? It just has to do with how your body can clear these things. So the next question was, how long does it take to detoxify from heavy metals, and what's the way to detoxify heavy metals efficiently? Oh, did she freeze? I think I think she froze. So I'm going to answer that question. Um, so until we get Dr. Petros back, so the answer is there's not a specific time frame for heavy metals. I would plan on 8 to 12 weeks of consistently sticking with a protocol. Are you back, Dr. Petros? Oh, okay. You got to unmute.
Thank you. I got muted.
Okay.
It wouldn't let me unmute it manually.
She's back.
Okay.
You froze in a really good position, though. You had a big smile on your face. So
That's good.
some
That's
people
good.
freeze picking their teeth. So, um, but so the question is, how long does it take to detox from heavy metals, and what is the best way to detox heavy metals efficiently?
Well, you touched on that, Gary. Just like you said, some people get rid of it and some people store it. And so it varies from person to person. This is the way we get it. We can't do blanket medicine. The art of medicine is in the details and individuality with each person. So in my personal experience as a medical doctor, it takes a while to get rid of this for some people because it's layered in the fascial tissues. And how quickly can we get the lymph and the fascia untangled? It depends on the person. It depends on their electrolyte status, their mineral status, their fat status, their hydration status, and how quickly we can open their drainage pathways to
Hmm.
release. So all this is very dependent on each individual.
So this is a great question. How do I detox after multiple CT scans or MRIs with contrast? I will also
Mhm.
say that I have seen people become very sick after getting an MRI with contrast dyes,
Mhm.
these radioactive dyes. Some people, again, can eliminate those and some can't. My wife was one of those people who got really ill after she had an MRI done of her shoulder. She had a torn bicep tendon, some damage to her rotator cuff. Luckily, it didn't require surgery, but they did the MRI with contrast. And I mean, it sent my wife into a tailspin. unlike anything I've ever seen. She was really poisoned by that. So can you talk a little bit about CT scans or MRIs with contrast dyes?
For sure. So MRIs use gadolinium, which is a heavy metal, and CTs use IV contrast dye, which goes through the kidneys to detox. In fact, they can cause acute kidney disease or failure in some sensitive people whose kidneys aren't up to par. So they can be hard on the system, but the number one rule is support drainage pathways first, because no matter what I give you and put in your body, if you can't poop it out, sweat it out, your liver can't process it, your bowel can't process it, you are going to hold on to it and it's going to store in the body. So before any chelation or detox works, you have to do this. So liver, think like milk thistle, dandelion, knaq, castor oil packs. Kidneys, hydration, nettle leaf, cranberry, astragalus, electrolytes, lymph, dry brushing, rebounding, sauna, red light, bowels, right? Going 2 times a day, magnesium, bitters, sometimes betaine HCl, right? So you can't drain a swamp with clogged pores. And so you may need binders once your drainage is open. You may want to think about something like EDTA, DMPS, or something like fulvic, humic acid, or clay binders. And even modified citrus pectin. So some of these are really, really important. And then don't forget the sauna and some of your biohacks that can help, even mitochondrial support. So that's how I would tackle it. It can be like a full-on drainage detox for you if you're really having symptoms and it started with the dye.
Yep, that's it. Okay, we got 5 minutes left, so I'm gonna try to get through some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
Can I still complete vibrant testing while on hormone replacement therapy during IVF?
Absolutely. 1000%, it will not interfere with environmental toxins and heavy metal testing. Of course, it would if you were doing the vibrant hormone zoomer, but we don't have to worry about that here.
How about candida? How do I get rid of it? Even with ketoconazole and hormone cream, I've had difficulty getting rid of candida.
Well, the emotional reason for candida is something's eating you up inside, like out in
Mm.
life. And then on top of that, the candida is there digesting something. Do you have heavy metals? Do you have BPA or microplastics? Why is it there? And then, obviously we really want to look at the diet, curb the sugar and seed oils and things like that. You've probably already done that. But for me, I would really be looking at your nervous system and drainage. And why do I say nervous system so much? I already talked a little bit about it, but the nervous system is so important, you guys, until you get that set and you're still releasing cortisol and adrenaline, the pathogens live off your adrenaline in your body. So sometimes that's why you are hospitable to them and they keep returning.
Yeah. This is a great question. What can you do to treat repeated sore throats, strep
Mm.
throats, and other common colds, illnesses that are so commonly given antibiotics? Whoever submitted that question, can you alert yourself to my team? If you're not a VIP, I'm going to give you a VIP
Oh,
membership. This is so close to my heart because there are so many young kids, and sorry to jump in front of you, Dr. Petros. There's so many young children that are having their tonsils taken out, that are having their adenoids removed because they have mold and mycotoxin poisoning that is causing repeated sore throats. If you have a child that has repeated strep throat infections, more than one a year, multiple strep throat infections, please get them tested for mold or mycotoxin. Again, whoever submitted that question, just notify yourself to the team. I'm going to give you a VIP membership at no cost. I want to get to know you. I'm going to help walk you or your loved one out of this, because this is one of the most common reasons why children are having their tonsils removed, their adenoids widen, and they're being bombarded and blasted with antibiotics.
yes.
And before my wife Sage and I got together, her daughter had this situation, was just being blasted with antibiotics, and it just bought us so many problems down the road. It was ridiculous. So I'd really like to
Yes.
help walk you or your family out of it. But if you want to take a stab at that, that would be great.
Of course. That's so nice, Gary. So first and foremost, besides mold, which you definitely need to test for, also they'll test for strep, but they often don't test for reactivated mono with a monospot, and it's often piggybacking together these two. Later
Mm,
on, it can develop things like PANS and PANDAS for children, which is a pediatric neuroencephalitis disorder caused by strep. So
yes.
I really rely on some homeopathy kits for Epstein-Barr and strep that I've been absolutely remarkable in their success for me. The other thing you want to look for is find a practitioner who does something called neural therapy. Neural therapy is using procaine, which is a local anesthetic, and homeopathics that are like liquid acupuncture. They talk to the body and they inject the tonsils. Even after you've had your tonsils removed, you can still inject the scar tissue. The ring of Waldeer and the tonsils here are the heralding organs of the lymphatic system. So when you inject them with liquid acupuncture called homeopathy, it drains the whole system. Do you
Yes, I've
know
seen
how
it.
I've seen it 100 times. I've
I
had
have
it
too.
done. I can inject tonsils. And actually, if you're in Florida, my friend Dr. Hadar Elbaz will travel all over Florida to inject people with neural therapy. You can inject scars and tonsils because scars also hold the trauma of what sustained them and they don't let the neurons fire properly in the nervous system. So you can see if you're in trouble with a kid who they say has to have their tonsils removed, don't go do it without some neural therapy first, guys. Okay? Neural,
All right.
Neural, neural therapy.
Guys, on a scale of 1 to 10, how are you feeling after that Q&A with Dr. Jessica Petros? Can you just put a 1 to 10 in there?
I hope you guys liked it and it
Yes,
helped.
there we go. Yeah. So Dr. Petros, this has been absolutely brilliant. You've given people, hope that there's answers out there. And even when they've been told there's, everything is normal and they know that something's off.
Right.
So what I love about your approach is you don't just test for the sake of testing. You're creating a roadmap to show people exactly what's in their body and exactly how to get it out safely. So where can people find out more about you or your work or get in touch with you? Or if you're actually interested in working with Dr. Petros, you're welcome to.
Yeah,
How do they
so
find you?
guys, there's levels to working with me. I post a lot on Instagram, and I give a lot of free health information on there. I really appreciate Gary for pushing our message further along in the population because we need this in functional medicine. I also have a website, drjessmd.com. I have a membership called Wellness Plus where I teach you how to be your own best doctor. It's wellnessplus.com. And if you'd like to see me in clinic, I would love to see you and help you guys. I love meeting you, all of you. And it's Dr. Jess, drjess.health. You'll see one of my expert members first, my experts, who make sure we're a good fit for each other. And then you can book a package with me if it feels right to you. But you guys, you can become your own best healer and you can reverse these things that they're not a sentence for the rest of your life. I've seen amazing things happen.
That's so amazing. Everyone on my team is dropping Dr. Petros's Instagram, her website, and all of her resources in the chat right now. Follow her. You can learn from her. She's one of the brilliant minds actually solving complex cases that other people have given up on. And if you're one of those people that's been diagnosed with something like an autoimmune or you have symptoms that you just can't put a finger on, don't give up. You're not as sick or diseased or as pathological as you've been told. You may be nutrient deficient or you may have one of these critters hiding in your body. So Dr. Petros, thank you so much for sharing your expertise and for the incredible work you're doing to help people get their lives back.
Harry, I can't thank you enough for having me. I'm so honored. Thank you so much for all the information you're putting out for people. You make my job easier. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. All right, guys, Dr. Petros has to jump off. Before we transition to the VIP, and I really would encourage you guys, today's the day to upgrade to VIPs. We gave away 3 $500 packages yesterday. I've got great giveaways today. It's $97 a month. I take a deep dive with this group. I also built a 10-month course on becoming the ultimate human. And rather than sell this course to the public, I just give it to my VIPs. So hopefully you'll go over to theultimatehuman.com/VIP and join us for the rest of the 90 minutes. But before we go, I want to quickly go back to the whiteboard and show you my personal Vibrant Wellness test. This is something that I just decided to be very vulnerable about because I know we're running over time and I apologize, but I just want to give you all the information I can in the free portion of this event before we go over to the VIP. So if we can just shoot over to the whiteboard, is it on?
Is that one?
I think so. This is page 5 and space 5 and 6. Yeah. So guys, this is my test, and this is very scary. And some of you that may have gotten this Vibrant Wellness test done, you might be facing the very same thing. So I just wanted to show you this so we didn't create panic. If you've gotten your test results back or you actually found out that you had heavy metals. So this is my test. There's my name, my date of birth. This was on the 15th of January of this year. So I ran the Great World Race in November with my son. Leading up to that race, all through that race, the 7 marathons, 7 continents, 7 days, I was drinking 4 or 5 liters of this water a day. and it was just laden with heavy metals. And so I got severe heavy metal toxicity. You can see the levels of tin, thallium, beryllium, and then right up here, look at aluminum, arsenic, and beryllium. Look at the levels of these three metals. They were off the charts. Hopefully you can see, can they see these? I'll blow them up nice and big. Because if I can get heavy metal toxicity, I promise you can. And again, I'm so intentional about my water, about my air, about my food, about seed oils, about packaged ingredients and preservatives, and I'm very intentional, and I was shocked by this. I overlaid this test on the test results that came out of this machine that I was drinking the water from, and they were superimposable. So at least I knew the source. But barium, antimony, these are heavy metals, and thankfully, I have a background as a human biologist, and what I started to realize was I was waking up in the morning and I would stand up out of bed and I would get a little woozy, and I was like, wow, is that blood pressure issue? Is it a hyposystolic issue? Is it my blood sugar? And then my fingers started to tingle during workouts. Sometimes my lips would actually tingle a little bit, and I did feel off. I felt like brain fog for maybe the first time in 10 years. I consider myself pretty acute. I don't usually have brain fog. And it dawned on me that this was either a mold toxicity or a heavy metal toxicity. So I did this test. This is why this challenge is so near and dear to my heart. So I want you to see the ranges of all of these, right? See how these are just massively high in the range. And I want you to see my next test, which was feed us service. So there we go. We're going to blow this up so you can actually see in 2 months where, there it is. You can actually see what I was able, look at the aluminums, less than 3. I got them all back down into normal ranges. The only one that's still hovering up there is this tin is a little high. That one was off the charts. But the antimony, the barium, the bismuth, these other aluminum, arsenics, and beryllium, these were the nasty heavy metals. My symptoms went entirely away, and I did exactly what I write about in this detox guide. That's why this Ultimate Challenge Detox Guide, even if you're not upgrading to the VIP, this is your guidebook. I wrote this to be a manual, not a magazine. It's not something to be perused. It's something for you to really study. If you find that you have this on your test and you follow this, you will be able to get these and clear them out of your system. So thank you guys so much for giving me your time today. It's just a blessing to be able to share this information and to be able to make an impact and bring these practitioners on. So let me jump onto this camera real quick. So if day 1 opened your eyes, guys, day 2 just handed you the keys. So now you understand that guessing is just going to keep you sick. Testing is what sets you free. And if you don't have the financial wherewithal for the testing, start putting money away until we can get to the point where you can actually just get that test, because the solutions are not expensive. So Dr. Petros just showed you that your symptoms are not mysterious. They're measurable. Those unexplained health issues, they have names, they have sources, and most importantly, they have solutions. And so here's where I want you to understand that knowing what tests to run is just the beginning. Knowing how to interpret them and how to act on them is how we would create a safe detox protocol that's based on the results that you get from this testing. That's where the real magic happens. So our VIP session starts in just a few minutes. I've been hydrating, so I've got to run to the restroom, but it starts in just a few minutes. And this is where I'm going to share something I've never shared publicly, which is the rest of my own testing journey, the shocking results that changed everything for me. You're looking at some of those on the board right there. The test that revealed why I felt like garbage, despite being very healthy. So I'm going to walk you through the rest of my test results so you can see what those numbers really mean, how you can track your progress, what benchmarks matter, and the advanced modalities that can accelerate your healing when your body is just too toxic to detox on its own. Plus, I'm going to give away 3 more VIP gift boxes today. They're each worth over $500 with all of the exact supplements that support safe, effective detoxification. So if you're ready to stop guessing and start measuring, if If you want to see the actual roadmap to get your health back, there's still time to join us. Just click that upgrade link and join me in the VIP. For everyone staying with free content, you've taken a huge step today. Tomorrow is our final day with Dr. Josh Axe. He's going to be joining us to talk about the exact daily protocol to support your detox pathways naturally. So until then, remember what Dr. Petros said. You can't detox what you don't measure. So if today resonated with you, if you recognize yourself in any of the symptoms that we discussed, consider getting tested. Okay, your body's been trying to tell you something, and maybe it's time to listen. So VIPs, let's take a 5 to 10 minute break. We're going to go use the restroom, do some breath work, get some more water, and I'll see you back on the Zoom in 5 to 10 minutes. Welcome back, VIPs. Day 2 is in the books, and I can already see the light bulbs going off. Dr. Petros just blew your minds, didn't she? This is exactly why I love working with functional medicine practitioners who actually understand root cause healing. These are the people that are really moving the needle in this world. So many of you guys, thank you so much for the comments you've been sending over the last few days. Some people say this is the best money they've ever spent. It's just really opened their eyes. Some of you are actually already on your way. You jumped ahead and you're already on your way to detoxing. But now we're going to go a little deeper. In the free session, we talked about what to test in here. I'm going to show you exactly what those tests look like, how to read them, and most importantly, what to do when the results are not pretty. And I'm going to start with my own testing because I'm going to show you the dates on the test, and I'm going to tell you exactly what I did to get rid of mold and mycotoxin poisoning, which actually ran through almost my entire family, and what I did when I got that specific heavy metal poisoning and had toxic levels of heavy metals. So before we dive deep, let's talk about the VIP gift boxes. We're giving away 3 boxes today. And again, I'm not talking about some cheap supplements here, guys. These boxes contain the Body Health Metal and Chemical Free Cleanse. They contain raw glutathione, the master antioxidant that I've been talking about. They'll contain Baja Gold sea salt grinders for proper mineralization. Both flavors of H2 tab, which by the way, can I have a, oh, I have one here. I'm actually going to take an H2 tab now, turn my brain back on. They're going to contain both flavors of the H2 tab. I love this raspberry flavor. Premium magnesium from Bile Optimizers. So the total value of all of those things is over 500 bucks. I'll give another 3 of them away for free today. So comment me, capital M-E, in the chat if you're excited about this giveaway, and be sure to write a blurb in the chat about why you should win. So give yourself a chance. Write a good blurb in the chat about why you should win. Maybe you're referring VIPs over to me. Maybe you've had a transformational journey. Maybe you're getting value for your money. So just let me know why you think that you should be a winner. I'm going to put a couple of H2 tab in there. Look at that. As that water gets cloudy, that's pure hydrogen gas. And when you drink that gas, it goes everywhere in the body. You know, I always talk about the 70% of our circulation that the heart does not do. That's done by vasomotor, by the activity of, not by the pressure of the heart, by the activity of this peristaltic motion. And this is excellent for getting that microvasculature circulating again. So like I said in the guide, you know, you can't fix what you don't measure. So if you're feeling sick or tired or anxious or inflamed, or you're just feeling off, you might be tempted to jump straight into the detox protocols or the heavy supplements or dietary changes, but guessing is not a strategy. It's kind of gambling with your biology. So without the right testing, you're kind of flying blind. Yes, you can do regular sauna. You should be supplementing. You should be moving, getting sunlight. But the reason why guessing fails for a lot of people is you're treating the wrong problem. You know, mold is treated differently than mycotoxin, or mold and mycotoxins are treated differently than heavy metals. You can waste time, you can waste energy, you can spend money on supplements that you might not even need. And you can overload your detox pathways without knowing what's being mobilized. And so it's really important for us to test if you have those symptoms, and especially if you've already done blood testing and you've gone to your primary care and your primary care tells you that you're fine. They're going to tell you you're fine if you're not, you know, your liver's not failing, your kidneys are not failing, you don't have type 2 diabetes, you're not pre-diabetic. A lot of you are doing all the right things like I was, and yet you still feel off. So you could miss hidden infections, toxins, or imbalances that really require specific interventions. That's what this whole 3-day detox is all about. So let me tell you what good testing reveals. Whether you have mold, toxins trapped in your tissues, whether you have heavy metals like mercury, lead, or arsenic that are disrupting your brain, sometimes your hormones or your immune system. Those hormone imbalances show up on your lab tests. Then you start treating yourself for hormone imbalances and the symptoms don't go away. Sometimes it will tell you whether or not you need targeted drainage support before we mobilize these toxins. And it will also tell you how burdened your detox organs really are. Like how overloaded is your liver, your kidneys, your lungs, your skin. So before we dive into interpreting the results, I want to dig even deeper into my own personal results. I know a lot of you have already gotten the Vibrant Wellness testing done. If you haven't, don't worry about it. As most of you know, a few months ago, I did get accidentally get lead poisoning amongst other heavy metal poisoning. Thankfully, I was able to trace it back to a very specific thing that I was drinking from a glorified welding machine that was actually poisoning me. So I did what Dr. Petros just talked about. I ran the advanced panels. I did mycotoxin testing. I did heavy metal testing, and I did a comprehensive gut analysis. And then suddenly, everything made sense. You know, I wasn't lazy or getting old or didn't have any kind of chronic issue. I was actually poisoned. So I'm going to go to the whiteboard. I'm going to show you my pre and post testing. I'm going to show you the distance between those two tests. And then we're going to talk about exactly what I did. And then I'm going to open this up to questions. Okay. So it's a little confusing because they reported differently on these tests. So just for clarity, that, you know, this is back to my test. This was on the 15th of January. And what's going to move these? This was on the 15th of January. I am going to blow this up for you guys. Let that go down for a second. What I did was I put some numbers here to make it a little easier for us to find these results on the next page. So on the 15th of January, I ran this test. I already showed you my heavy metals testing. What was shocking to me were some of the levels of mold and mycotoxins that were in the highly toxic range. This patulin, for example, the dihydrocitronone, these CHAs, these are all mold and mycotoxins, okay? So basically what I want you to do is I want you to see that all of these were, I'll blow it up here, all of these were pegged into the red. See these CHAs and the dihydrocitronons? You don't need to know specifically what these are, other than that these are mold and mycotoxins. And what happens is mold is a sporulating infection, meaning mold can be dormant and then it can sporulate. It can actually release these spores into the bloodstream. Very often when it gets trapped in the nasopharynx, think about what an amazing place to grow mold in the back of your throat, in your eustachian tubes, those tubes that lead from the back of your throat into your ears that cause pressurization to build up. In your sinuses, you have a maxillary sinus. You have these sinuses, lacrimal sinuses above your eyes. These are dark, oxygen-deprived, moist spaces that have very little blood flow. They are perfect breeding grounds for mold and mycotoxins. It's just like the underbelly of your sink, right? Not a lot of airflow, not a lot of light, moisture, and darkness. And so that is perfect breeding ground for mold. So the human body just happens to be a great repository for mold. So I want you to specifically look at this CHA and these dihydrocitronons. I want you to look at the patulin, the zearalenone, different species of mold and mycotoxin. And I'm going to show you all of these were pegged out into the red. When we go to the next page. So we can go and find these on the board. Do you see that first one that I talked about? I'm gonna erase this and I'm just gonna blow it up and ask you to hold those in your memory for a second. By the way, this was done on 5/12. Okay, so this was done in May. So roughly February, March, April, May. So 4 months later, I went and got the same toxin test done. Remember that CHA that was pegged all the way over here into the red? Remember the dihydrocitronone that was pegged all the way over here in the red? Do you remember the zearalenone that was all the way over here in the red? This ochratoxin A, I'm going to come back to in a second. The CTNs, the ENNB1s, these different forms of mold and mycotoxin, look, all back into normal range. This mycophenolic acid, I'm going to come back to it in a second as well. But the patulin, this patulin in the previous example, 4 months earlier, was off the charts. So all of these were pegged over here in the red. they were all maxed out on my test, right? So I didn't just have metal toxicity, I had this chronic mold toxicity. And you know what was crazy is around that time, I started to notice that I had a little bit of a post-nasal drip. I was blowing my nose a lot. I was a little more sniffly than usual. I equated it to my travel schedule. And I just want to remind you guys, I am so intentional about my air quality, my water quality, my food quality. I'm very intentional about my sleep. I'm mindful about breath work and other things. I was not focused on detoxification. I was focused on optimal health, but I wasn't highly focused on detoxification. So I switched my entire protocol to focus on getting rid of mold and mycotoxins. I then traced these mold and mycotoxin back to two places, and I want to share that with you. I did a lot of testing around my house. So nuts was my primary source. Coffee was my secondary source. I was actually drinking organic, but I was not drinking a mold-free coffee. Now I make sure that I have certified mold-free coffee that I stopped inoculating myself. I'm also a big believer in nuts, but I was buying them in bulk, storing them in big, tall glass jars. And then what I would do is when I would travel, I would put them in Ziploc bags, and I would take them with me, and I was eating them by the ton. And I felt amazing because they're usually high in fat, they're low in carbohydrates, they have protein in them. I was eating a lot of macadamia, tons of pistachios. I was eating a lot of what's the small ones? The pine nuts. I was putting pine nuts in raw yogurt on a regular basis. I do not eat a lot of grains, but in my family, I don't actually eat any grains. But grains is another source that you want to eliminate, and dairy that is non-raw. So unless you are drinking raw dairy, you should eliminate dairy products. Raw cheeses, raw creams, raw yogurts are usually fine. But during this detoxification time, I want you to be conscious of nuts, especially nuts that are stored in bulk. Coffee, if you are a coffee drinker, you should switch to a mold-free, certified mold-free version. I drink one called Danger. There's another one called Pure. I'm actually testing several brands right now, and I will put those into the VIP chat. I have a lab that can actually test for these molds and mycotoxins, but I found them. I won't tell you the brand, but I will tell you that it came from Costco, and it was an organic brand. And it was so high in those mycotoxins. I was able to link my Vibrant Wellness test to the specific molds and mycotoxins that were found in these areas. So these were the big offenders for me. If you like grains, you can switch to things like grain-free granola, like an Elizabeth's grain-free granola. I don't have a major issue with grains. Grains is also an area, if you're not eating organic, non-GMO grains, this is a major area for glyphosate toxicity as well. These are the most heavily subsidized crops in the world, especially here in the United States. Corn, soy, wheat. These are massively subsidized crops, and they have huge amounts of glyphosate. And glyphosate is basically Roundup. It is an herbicide, not an insecticide, meaning it is designed to kill weeds, but it kills not only the weed, but in non-genetically modified crops, it will actually kill the crops, which is why most of our corn is genetically modified. It's why most of our grain products are genetically modified. They're not genetically modified to improve the yield or improve the nutritional density. They're genetically modified to resist glyphosate. That's why they modify crops. So if you can avoid GMOs, genetically modified crops, which are also now called bioengineered, boy, that's a terrible handwriting. I should have been a doctor. So they use this term bioengineered to replace GMOs now. So look for that on packaging. This is why you want to buy certified GMO-free or non-bioengineered forms of these compounds, because I can In fact, I should actually do this. I should next time we have a VIP chat, I should actually show you the testing that I had done on nuts, coffee that I bought in bulk. Again, I did not personally get it from Grains, but this is a big source. And I don't do dairy that is not raw. I get my dairy here from Southwest Ranches, which is an Amish farm. They source it from an Amish farm. And I avoid glyphosate because I avoid the GMO food. So these are major sources of inoculating yourself with mold and mycotoxin outside of what you might be getting from your environment, from your home. And most of us think about a mold test in our house as just seeing visible mold. But I promise you, mold sporulates. The mycotoxins from mold cause significant chronic illness, and very often it is not visible mold that's causing the issue. So if you do have if you're having your home remediated for mold or tested for mold, make sure they do an air quality spore test, not just a visual inspection for mold. You can do the visual inspection yourself, looking under your sink, looking under your bathroom, looking behind your toilets, actually taking your toilet top off and seeing if it's infested with mold, pulling your headboards out and seeing if you have a moldy pattern behind your headboard. A lot of us are actually sleeping right with our head right against a headboard that actually has mold behind it, and those spores can inoculate you. Okay, so that's a little bit about my testing. I wanted you to see that I got rid of mold, mycotoxins, and heavy metals. I brought them all down into safe ranges after only 4 months of sticking to this protocol. So let me tell you about some advanced modalities that can help when your body is too overwhelmed to detox on its own. These are things I didn't talk about on the free challenge just because I don't want to overwhelm people. I also don't want to try to break anybody's budget. But these are things that are not necessary, but they can accelerate your capacity to detox from these things. There is something called EBO2. You may want to write that down, or EBOO. Okay, it's extracorporeal blood oxygenation and ozonation. So ozone is O3. It's oxygen bound to a third molecule of oxygen, so it's O3. It's not good to breathe ozone, but it is very safe to use transdermally through the skin. It is very safe to use intravenously through IV. The way that ozone works is you have an oxygen molecule, you bind a third oxygen to that oxygen molecule. That third oxygen molecule does not want to be there. It's one of the most reactive species that we know of. It wants to detach and it wants to find something to neutralize. When you put ozone into the bloodstream, that third oxygen molecule acts like a missile to free radicals, inflammation, oxidation, and it can neutralize things like mycotoxins. It can actually neutralize viruses. It's very damaging to what's called the nucleocapsid protein of a virus, which is the envelope that a virus lives in. Remember, a virus is not a living thing. Okay, a virus is an envelope, right? What we call a nucleocapsid protein, and it has DNA inside of it. Okay, it floats around in your bloodstream. When it finds a cell, it attaches to that cell, it opens up, and it injects its DNA into that cell. It's kind of like an old-fashioned zombie movie. You know, you get bit by the zombie and then you become a zombie. This is what happens to our cells. It gets bit by a virus, the DNA gets injected into the virus, and now the viral DNA takes over the host cell. This is why your immune system's reaction is so important. Remember, during COVID, people didn't die from COVID. They died from the immune system's response to COVID. They died from something called the cytokine storm, like the inflammation that was caused by the immune system attacking the virus. And why did some people have massive cytokine storms and some people have no cytokine storm at all? Some people were what we call asymptomatic. They were actually infected but didn't even know it. The reason for this is the acuity of your immune system. So it's so important to keep our immune system strong, meaning that the virus comes in, it inoculates you. The sooner your immune system engages, the less of a fight ensues, right? So if you had 1,000 soldiers sitting on the shore and the enemy sent 100 soldiers to that shore to attack you, it'd be a very easy fight, right? 1,000 to 100. If you had 100 soldiers on the shore and 1,000 enemy soldiers showed up, this would be a very brutal fight. You would see that you would have to recruit additional soldiers to come into that battle, and there would be a big, massive, bloody war. This is similar to how the immune system works. When your immune system is strong, one of the ways we evaluate it is by how many soldiers do you have on the field of battle just waiting for the enemy to show up. If you have a massive army of soldiers, if you have the neutrophils, the lymphocytes, the eosinophils, the basophils, if you have a good white blood cell profile, then when the enemy shows up, the virus inoculates your body, it's a very quick fight. What happens in people with compromised immune systems is that the virus gets into the body and it starts to climb. We call this the viral load. So the virus has an initial inoculation point. You get infected, somebody with COVID sneezed on you, or influenza sneezed on you, and now you're infected. And now the virus starts, replicating. As it starts to replicate, the later that the immune system engages, the worse the storm. This is why sometimes every few years you just get flattened by a cold, because you get inoculated, that viral load starts to skyrocket. As it skyrockets, the immune system locks in late, and then by the time it meets the number of viruses with the number of white blood cells, you have a massive cytokine storm, and you're sneezy and achy and shaky and feverish and congested and swollen and stuffy and all of those things. So EbO2 ozone does two things. One, it filters your blood. So it actually puts your blood through a filter, which is designed to remove glyphosate, BPAs, the bisphenols. Those are the plastics and microplastics that we always talk about. Actually, you can see that some of those toxins that I had were actually specifically related to plastics. And again, I'm very intentional about what I do. I use Caraway cookware. I drink from glass from glass bottles. I don't drink from plastic bottles. I never heat anything in plastic. I never microwave anything in plastic. But when you're going out to restaurants and you're taking home takeaway food and you're eating on the road, there's only so much that you can do. And so EbO2 will filter the blood and add ozone to the blood, and this accelerates your capacity to detox. There's also IV ozone therapy. There's a couple forms that IV ozone comes in. One is called 10-pass or direct ozone. And this is where they hook you up to an IV line. There's usually a glass bottle hanging that is slowly circulating like a centrifuge. And your blood is pulled out, ozone is added to it, and it's put back into the body. And it's pulled out, ozone is added to it, and it's put back into the body. And this usually happens 10 times, which is why they call it 10-pass ozone. You can Google around for these, and I promise you there is a clinic within your neighborhood that does EbO2, IV ozone, or ozone therapy. Also, if you're thinking about IVs, IV nutrient therapy, here's what you want to look for. High-dose glutathione, NAD+, and custom Myers cocktails. There's something called a Myers cocktail. A Myers cocktail has the full complex of B vitamins. It uses a form of B12 called hydroxycobalamin. There is magnesium. There is vitamin C, ascorbic acid in there, and something called calcium gluconate. A Myers cocktail is a very specific combination of those exact things. So don't just get an IV or an IV for hydration or detox IV. Specifically ask for a Myers cocktail, high-dose NAD+ or high-dose glutathione. Okay, so when your body's depleted from chronic toxicity, oral supplements very often are not enough. So if you're in that position where you have severe symptoms, IV delivery can bypass the digestive system and flood your cells with what they need to start detoxing naturally. So these aren't necessary for everybody, but when someone's sick for years and their natural detox capacity is shot, these modalities can be life-changing for you guys. Okay, so I don't want you to think that you need fancy supplements or fancy treatments to walk your way out of this. But if you've gotten yourself in a position where you have advanced autoimmune, where you really have significant brain fog, weight gain, water retention, things that are not showing up in your labs, unexplained anxiety, unexplained depression, mood swings, crushing fatigue, usually in the morning that lasts till roughly midday. It may be time to jump the oral route and start, accessing some of these modalities. I try to be as light on your budget as I possibly can, but some of you really would benefit from these at a clinic that's near you because you just are not able to absorb nutrients any longer. All right, so now let's get to the pre-submitted questions from all of you. I got them right here. Have a little bit more hydrogen water. So Jacqueline Johnson says, you recommend ozone for psoriasis, but HOCAT, which is transdermal ozone, doesn't reach my scalp. Any other recommendations? Yes. If you do it intravenously, it will reach your scalp. It'll circulate around your entire bloodstream. Also, one of my favorite products is H2 Tab. They just released a bath bomb that you can, they're large H2 tablets that you can actually throw into bath water. It will turn your bath into a hydrogen nano bath. If you go down and soak your scalp in that hydrogen gas, it's very, very good for eczema, psoriasis, sebaceous acne, and all kinds of skin and rash conditions. In fact, I've never seen anything like bathing in hydrogen gas work for those kinds of conditions. Topical skin conditions are tough because they very often form a non-blood supplied layer on the top of the skin. And so you actually don't get the anti-inflammatories or other nutrients from inside the skin to the surface to address the psoriasis or the eczema or the rash or the sebaceous acne. But bathing in hydrogen gas is a great solution for that. So Julie Tim says, my daughter and granddaughter have asthma. How can they help themselves naturally without traditional meds? Okay, so asthma very often is what we call, I want you to write these two things down, mast cell syndrome, mast like the mast on a sailboat, mast cell syndrome, histamine intolerance, right? So in other words, what happens is most people on the inflammatory scale are walking around at a 2. Your daughter, I think it was your daughter, yeah, your daughter and your granddaughter are walking around at a 5 or a 6, meaning they are already in an inflamed state. So things like hay fever, ragweed, pollen, dust, mites, things that actually wouldn't cause inflammation, phlegm, congestion in a normal person actually trigger them to have an asthmatic attack. So the idea is to lower the baseline level of inflammation. One of the safest and best ways to do this is start in the morning with a 6 to 8 ounce glass of water. I always add Baja Gold sea salt. Put them on hydrogen tablets, the H2 tab. You can put these into water, and this will help open the microvascular circulation and actually may lower the histamine response in the body. Hydrogen is a selective antioxidant. So in other words, it doesn't just crush oxidation in the body and free radicals. It actually goes into the DNA and causes the DNA to produce compounds like glutathione, catalase, superoxide dismutase that actually lower inflammation permanently. And you can take it every day without risk. Again, I think hydrogen gas is one of the most underutilized therapies in all of modern medicine. Chris Mager says, I'm trying to get off of Ozempic and beat high hemoglobin A1C. High hemoglobin A1C is the 3-month average of your blood sugar. So it's like a 90-day window into your blood sugar. Is detox the right place to start? You can start with detox, but if you're trying to treat high hemoglobin A1C and you're on Ozempic, first of all, Ozempic is a GLP-1, a glucose-like polypeptide. And we release GLP-1 from our gut. GLP-1 is made in the gut by human beings. And what do we make it in response to? You make it in response to nutrient density. So one of the best ways to control your hemoglobin A1C is to not eat processed foods, to not eat high glycemic foods, high sugary foods, and to go on a whole food diet, preferably a paleo-like whole food diet. When we eat nutrient dense foods, we release a lot of GLP-1 in the gut. GLP-1 then tells us we're satiated. Sadly, food manufacturers for decades have been scientifically engineering foods to avoid the secretion of GLP-1. What this means is they are scientifically engineering, bioengineering foods so that they can get around your GLP-1 response so you don't get satiated, you don't feel full, and you overeat. This is why you could eat 3 boxes of Oreo cookies, but you couldn't eat your way through 6 avocados, right? Avocados are too nutrient dense. You would feel sick, but you could eat 3 boxes of Oreo cookies. I'm not saying you particularly, but most people, because those will not trigger the release of GLP-1. Janine Morton said, can metal toxicity come from implanted surgery hardware like disc fusions or dental bridges? Dental bridges, 1000%. Anything in the oral cavity that includes metal, titanium, mercury, palladium, cadmium, metal fillings, root canals, retainers, metal retainers, those are major sources of metal toxicity. There is constantly saliva around them. They act like batteries. There is acid in your mouth through your saliva called amylase that forms a little sodium battery charge. It actually forms a charge. It attracts electromagnetic frequency, things like Wi-Fi, radiation, 5G, 4G, 3G networks, radio waves, microwaves are actually attracted to those metals. And so it increases the amount of EMF exposure to your skull. And it also can interrupt what's called meridian pathways, which are nervous and functional pathways in the body that are communication channels between the brain and the rest of the body. If you don't know about my personal journey with, I've seemed to be like this big biohacker and then I always have these problems. So I actually had an infected root canal, 2 of them actually. And I did an entire podcast on this with Dr. Jigar Gandhi, Gandhi. You may want to watch that podcast. Game changer if you have a root canal or you have metal fillings or you have other kind of dental issues that you think might be causing systemic issues. Please watch that podcast. You can even make an appointment to go see Dr. Gandhi. Dom L said, I had an amalgam filling for 10 years. They were badly worn. Can your detox program help remove that mercury exposure? Yes, you can actually see the specific form of metals that I had in my own labs. And yes, we can detox from those metals. So stay tuned. You're in the right place with the VIPs. I'm going to make sure every single one of you gets the 8-week mold and is it 8 week? 12-week metal and 8-week mold guide that I wrote specifically for folks like you. So it's going to be uploaded, by the end of the week? Okay, by Friday. We're just working on the layout and everything, but I was very intentional about this, and it's going to be free to you as a VIP. It's a 12-week metal detox, which is what you're talking about, and there's also an 8-week mold guide. So Karen Steichman says, what are normal blood pressure ranges for somebody 65 and over? Also, how much potassium, sodium, magnesium should I use in my 64-ounce electrolyte drink? So I would use 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon of Baja Gold sea salt in 8 to 10 ounces of water. You want to be below 130 on the systolic range and below 85 on the diastolic range on your blood pressure readings. I mean, that's the general guidelines for that age. Janet Marsham says, I'm 61, post-menopause, and I've taken dexlansoprazole for years. How can I wean off it and restore my gut? Okay, so things like methylprednisone, the methotrexate, corticosteroids in general, these are very degradatory to connective tissue. In short, specific non-chronic but acute uses, they can be great. A single shoulder injection with a cortisone or a spinal injection when you have a pinched nerve can be great. Short-term use of corticosteroids for massive inflammatory risks, generally can be dealt with. Chronic use of corticosteroids actually causes our tissue to erode like a termite. So one of the things that I would really think about doing in a month, I'm going to have a peptide line that I'm fully endorsing that's actually being made at a pharmaceutical grade level. But between now and then, I would really suggest that you think about talking to your healthcare provider about BPC 157, body protection compound 157, and something called TB 5000. TB 5000 is a tissue healing peptide. They are both excellent for the gut. You can take them orally or by injection. BPC 157 is tolerated very well orally. And then I would talk to your doctor about a titration protocol. You want to come off of corticosteroids, especially if you've been on them chronically, over a prolonged period of time. It's just like SSRIs or narcotic medication, thyroid medication. You know, a lot of times you take a greater risk just cold turkey stopping than you do titrating off of these things. Same thing for amphetamines like Adderall, Vyvanse, and Ritalin. So Michelle McKinley says, I care for my 88-year-old mother. She is off of most prescriptions, but has very low T3. Can you recommend supplements or foods to help her raise it naturally? Yes. I would think about looking at Thorne's supplement called Thyrosin, Thyrosin. Thyrosin. It's a thyroid support. Works very well in geriatric patients. There's some geriatric research about selenium and some of the other compounds that are in this being very difficult to absorb in older patients. So these are micellized versions of that, and they usually work well for low levels of T3. Heidi Johnson, we've done years of gut protocols for my autistic son. What's the next step for clearing metals, viruses, or inflammation? You're in the right place. That's what, this 3-day detox is all about. Please stay tuned until Friday. You're a VIP, so you're absolutely in the right place. I have an 8-week mold guide and a 12-week metal guide. You should have already gotten the Ultimate Detox Challenge guide. Please really study this. Like I said, I made this to be a manual, like a how-to, almost like a owner's manual for your vehicle, not just a magazine that you read. This was one of the most intentional challenges I've ever done. And the reason was because this hit me personally, and it also hit my family. And I realized that if someone like me could get heavy metal and mold toxicity, I feel like anybody could. And so I've been really intentional about putting this together. And you'll find all of those answers for your son in that guide that'll be up in the VIP group by Friday. So do mold removers work if you don't have ozone access? I'm not sure what mold removers are. I assume you're talking about cleansers. The reason why I don't like cleansing mold out of the house, obviously, if you see it, you can use there are certain chemicals that actually kill mold. The reason why I don't particularly favor that, and I really do favor ozone. Now, you can get an ozone generator. You can get air filters that actually have ozone settings. Ozone will go places that you can't see, that you can't reach, that you can't touch with chemicals, you can't get to with a brush. Air blasting doesn't work. So ozone will enter your ventilation system. It will go through your filtration system. It will go through the coils in your HVAC. It will go into your mattresses, into your soft bedding. It'll actually go through the drywall and kill mold on the back of the drywall. It's known to kill termites in the foundation of wooden homes. So ozone really is a very, very special way to address mold toxicity. Just make sure kids, pets, anything living that you love is out of the house when you run ozone. Okay, there's still a couple more. Oh, wow, you guys are really active. If I have chronic gut and digestion issues, how can I distinguish if the main issue is related to toxins or if I should focus more directly on the digestive system primarily? So the way that you figure out if you have toxic issues or if you have digestive system issues is the timing of your bowels. So all of you should be, your bowels should be on a regular circadian cycle. Ideally, you would wake up in the morning and within 45 minutes of waking, you would actually have a bowel movement. If you are not having a bowel movement within 45 minutes of waking, please download my ultimate gut detox guide and look at the gut challenge that we did. And we're going to, we talk about what kind of probiotics, what kind of magnesiums, and everything else we can use to actually get our gut moving again. You know, one of the things that I hope you captured from this detox challenge is I want you to be having regular bowel movements, urinating frequently with pale yellow urine, flushing your kidneys, having the right raw material in our bodies, amino acids, minerals, and methylated vitamins before we start switching over to detoxification, right? Before we start provoking these things out of our tissues. Okay, I got 2 more questions to go through. I'm 52 with Hashimoto's and menopause. My doctor recommends hormone replacement pellets, but I'd rather avoid surgery. Is there a better alternative? Also, is it dangerous to stop taking NP thyroid? NP is a natural dissected thyroid. It's better than most thyroid medications. So if you're 52 with Hashimoto's and menopause, first of all, the toxic testing that we're asking you to do, these vibrant wellness tests, is exactly what you need. Very often, what lit your immune system up to the thyroid gland was not your immune system going haywire, was not an autoimmune disease. It was an autoimmune reaction very often to heavy metals embedded in the thyroid. Now, I'm not saying for certain that that's the case in your Hashimoto's, but 85% of all Hashimoto's is idiopathic. It's of unknown origin. So why are we not continuing to search for the origin of that condition? Maybe the answer is getting rid of the heavy metals. Also, pellets are not really surgery. There's a tiny, minor incision, and they insert the pellets under the skin. Sometimes they don't even close it with a stitch. They just close it with a little butterfly bandage. I'm a big fan of hormone replacement therapy for women. The earlier you do it in menopause, the better your results. Okay. All right. I think we're going over to the live. We're moving into the live Q&A time. Guys, no question is too big, too weird, too small. Trust me, if you have it, there's thousands of people in this VIP group. Somebody else wishes they had the gumption to ask that same question. So let's talk all things toxicity and detoxing today, whether it's mold, heavy metals, parasite, lead. I mean, let's just get into it. Just a friendly reminder. I have to say this, I am not a medical profession. I am not licensed to practice medicine. I'm a human biologist. So this is for educational purposes only. So always work with a qualified healthcare practitioner for your medical decisions. If you want to ask a question live, just raise your hand using the Zoom reactions at the bottom of your screen, or drop your question into the chat and my team will bring it to me and we'll put it up on the screen and I'll try to address as many as I can.
Oh, I guess I'm up. I'm Janet.
There you are, Janet.
This is
You're
an
up.
awesome, awesome thing that you're doing, this challenge.
Thank you.
You have mentioned a lot of, we've been talking a lot about the heavy metal, chronic exposure, that kind of thing. And you talked about joint replacements and mouths and all this, but what about pacemakers and defibrillators with the stainless steel wires?
Yes, the older the pacemaker, the higher the risk. Pacemakers and defibrillators, more than 7 to 8 years old, and actually were in cases that actually leached into the surrounding tissue. There are some clinical studies on these. So depending on when the pacemaker was put in, yes, the pacemakers can be necessary for and life-saving. They can now actually mount pacemakers outside of the skin, and they use EMF shielding to shield the pacemaker. The wires do go into the body, but there's significantly less EMF radiation. If you have a pacemaker, then the one thing that you can do is just shield the other assaults in your life. So if you can't control the fact that you have a pacemaker, or you have some other type of electronic device, you know, there are devices that they put into the spine for pain, and these can be critical to people living a semi-normal life and not having the risk of atrial fibrillation or of severe chronic back pain. So I do see the need for these. But do EMF mitigation in other areas of your life. Turn your Wi-Fi off at night. Be diligent about not sleeping with your phone next to your head. Unplug wires within 6 feet of your bed. Think about getting a grounding mattress. Think about grounding each day on a regular basis, just taking your shoes off and touching the surface of the earth. Also, detoxifying is not just detoxifying from the buildup of metals, mold, and mycotoxin. We're detoxifying from the buildup of electromagnetic field radiation. So these detox protocols that we're talking about are also good for mitigating the effects of the EMF.
And then well, I have had a pacemaker for 30 years. And so
Okay. So
obviously
you want
my
to just do
issue is
EMF
that.
mitigation as much as
Okay.
possible.
Second question is, we've talked a lot about saunas, but when you have very low blood pressure, are there any other options?
Yes. So light sauna. Also, if you have very low blood pressure and you are worried about getting hyposystolic in a sauna. Now, usually what happens is your heart rate actually starts to climb in a sauna. It will climb into what's called the EBZ, the exercise benefit zone. But if you're worried about that, you can also use something called dry brushing. And so make sure that you get a non-toxic brush, a non-plastic brush. You use horsehair, boar's hair with a wooden handle. Dry brushing is where you start at your fingers and you literally, like you're trying to tease weeds out of a garden, you move in the direction of your core. So you start at the periphery and you dry brush your way to the core. And you literally, it should scour your skin a little bit, leave the little white dry marks on your skin. Should be slightly irritating, might get a little red afterwards. That's all good news. And you start at your feet, you brush towards your groin, you start at the ends of your hands, and you brush towards your trunk. What you're trying to do is get that lymphatic flow dumping into the larger lymph nodes so that it can be eliminated. Tapping and cupping are also other great ways to actually stimulate blood flow and lymphatic flow. And you can also use compression gear. Normatec makes good compression gear. What's the other one that I have? Not Hyper Ice makes the gun, but what's the big blue one that I have?
Oh, the one that.
Yeah.
Oh,
In any case, the compression gear, I'm having a brain fart right now. Maybe I need to do more metal detox, but compression gear is another good way to get some of the benefits of sauna if you have heat sensitivity or you're worried about becoming hyposystolic.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome. I don't know why I get so excited about these questions, but I do. Diana. Hi, Diana. Oh, are you walking on a treadmill? Oh my God, I feel so guilty. Okay, now you shut your camera and your mic off.
I got nervous.
Okay, you got nervous. Hi, Diana.
Hi, how are you?
I'm amazing, but I'm not walking on a treadmill. I mean, you're making me look bad in front of my VIP group here.
Oh my goodness. Hi. So, yes, been following you. I'm here in Naples, Florida.
Oh, great.
And loving it. Just moved here about 8 months ago.
Where in Naples?
More towards Marco Island.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we have a house in Brookside and we're building in a place called the Aura at Metropolitan.
On Davis
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, right on Davis.
Those are beautiful. Yes. So, okay. So my question is, kind of touched on a little bit yesterday, but the Dilos air quality monitor, I understand that. But my other question was for the actual filtration system. I didn't know if odor stop filter 3700 was a good one.
Yes, that is. That's carbon and HEPA filtration.
Right. Okay.
Yep. That one's good.
Got these two.
So do I.
Dealing with mast cell with my daughter, when we moved here, probably about a month before, she just started going into anaphylactic shock because of the whole mast cell situation. Have started her on all kinds of protocols because she was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. In addition to this, 18 years old, anyways, we've avoided the $40,000 a month pharmaceuticals that
Great.
you have suggested. We've gotten her to a point of being able to live without the steroids and that kind of stuff, which we've never put her on.
Mhm.
I was told at the emergency room that I was a hysterical parent, even though she
Of course.
was into anaphylactic shock. So I guess my question is, between the ozone, between all these changes, is it something with mast cell that we have to put her on the steroids at some point? Do we have
No,
to put her?
no, we just have to figure out what's triggering the mast cell. I would do extensive testing. I would do the full vibrant wellness test for all of the full panel: mold, metals, mycotoxins, parasites, viruses. Even beyond, what I was recommending on for the basic mold and metal detox for this challenge, I would do the full vibrant wellness test there. And then I would also think about, depending on your budget, I would think about getting a hydrogen nanobath. There's an amazing one by Hue Light. It's not cheap. It's about a $7,000 device. But what it will do is it will take the water out of the tub. It will circulate it through a device that you just put distilled water in it, and it will fill the tub with hydrogen nanogas. Bathing in hydrogen nanogas is one of the greatest ways to reduce inflammation externally, transdermally. The other thing that I would really think about is putting her on H2 tabs. I would use a single tablet at a time. You could do those twice, even potentially 3 times a day, as long as you have a few hours in between. I would check her for the gene mutation MTHFR.
Yes.
She's
Yes.
very likely positive for MTHFR.
I did request that, but her doctor told me that I was crazy, so that we have to do it. That I'm over testing. But when
God, it's so sad. Like,
I was
unless they can tell
hysterical.
you,
Yeah.
this is the answer that I have, and again, I'm not just trying to get you to senselessly spend money, but, unless they can tell you specifically what is causing the issue. If they say she has mast cell syndrome because of an allergy to X, or she has mast cell syndrome because of the presence of Y, then why would we just not keep investigating? You hear of miracle cures in science. There's no such thing as a miracle cure. It's when we figured out what was causing something to exist. And I say this all the time. I'm a much bigger believer in what God gives us than what man makes us. And very often the solution is found back inside of our biology. The body is missing something that it needs to defend itself, to eliminate waste, to repair, to detoxify, or regenerate. I don't think there's any such thing as over-testing. I would never give up the search for the source until you find it. And until you have the source, I mean, other than the expense, obviously, and the frustration, we should continue to test. I will tell you that the 4 majors are causing about 85% of these conditions: mold, mycotoxin, heavy metal, parasite, virus. So if we can eliminate those 4, you've narrowed down a massive category of pro-inflammatory compounds that could literally be the difference between her living a natural, healthy, happy life and her having to be on
And
corticosteroids.
she's had absolutely nothing processed for 11 months.
God bless you. Good.
Diet, enzymes, we've done everything. And even
Good.
on that. And we've stayed away from some of the foods, like the pickles and the kimchi and that kind of stuff, because that actually was activated.
Yes.
It
Yes.
causes more of a reaction. So
Fermented foods can
fermented
do that in mast cell
so I had to kind of
syndromes.
find my way around, and I've worked with, grew up in Malibu area. So we came from that, then we came here. So
You went from mold capital to mold capital. Great.
Yeah, when you said that, I put in the chat. Great. She was raised there most of the time and then came here to South Florida. And so I'm sure all of that has something to do with all of it.
I'm really excited about you for you. I actually invited somebody and gave them a VIP membership today because it sounded like they had a child that was having recurrent sore throats and was on repeated antibiotics. And in the majority, and I'll just say this again, if you have a child less than 18 years old that has recurrent repeated strep throat infections, more than one a year,
Everyone.
they have mold and mycotoxin toxicity, full stop.
Yeah.
Full stop. Children do not get, with normal immune systems, do not get repeated strep throat infections for no reason. They get it because of the sporulation of mold and mycotoxin. I would bet my entire career that that is one of the sources.
Okay, yeah.
All right.
And as far as the bathtub, I just have that whole thing. So I looked into those tubs because my husband has tinnitus because he's a football Pac-12 referee and he got knocked out. Has
Uh-huh.
terrible brain injury because of that. I mean, not terrible, he's still functionable. But
Yeah.
would that help as well? Because that's what I originally was looking into, that bathtub.
Would you do me a favor? Would you talk to my team and put in their tinnitus and hydrogen bathtub, and I'll actually have someone from my team contact you. I don't want to get on the whole tinnitus bandwagon on this, but I mean, your husband probably has something called neuronal tinnitus, which is not related to the inner ear or the cochlea or damage to the ear. It's not related to tympanic membrane injury. It's related to a portion of the brain being trapped in a parasympathetic state. I have walked people out of suicide levels of tinnitus. I had a very good friend of mine, some of you know this story, very famous DJ, on the verge of taking his own life, and I somehow convinced him to come and stay with me for 2 weeks. And I was able to walk him out of chronic tinnitus. There's a very specific mechanism that you do to walk out of that. But tinnitus is one of those things that, I mean, it's right up there with complex regional pain syndrome. You know, people just can't take it after a while because the sound is relentless. And other than just having constant noise go into the ear to override it, it can really drive you crazy. So I'd love to give you some guidance on that as well. All right. Awesome. Great talking to you. Maybe I should do a tinnitus challenge, I think, because there's such a paucity of information on that. Captain Allen? All right, Captain John Brecka. What kind of captain are you? Pilot?
No, boat captain.
Oh, boat captain. Awesome. Nice to meet you, Captain Allen.
My wife set up my Zoom profile. So
My wife does
can you hear
everything
me?
too. Yep.
Yeah, I tried to get her to change it, but she wouldn't.
Okay.
So, I've got a 5.5-year-old daughter. Since she was an infant, she's struggled with bowel movements. My wife had some postpartum complications that she needed antibiotics for, and so we're assuming through breast milk she got the antibiotics.
Yes.
And she's had a couple of other times where she, meaning my daughter, had to have prolonged antibiotic use. And so she just has always struggled with bowel movements. She'll go 3, sometimes 4 days without having one. And then it's like adult, extra large size bowel movements, and they're painful.
Yeah, very painful.
And so I know you've talked about magnesium and fiber and different probiotics, but I haven't ever heard anything specific for small children.
Yes. There are infantile, how old is she?
5.5.
Okay, so there are infantile probiotics, infantile colostrums, and there are infantile gummies that in combination can be used to restore intestinal motility. Yes, magnesium is very likely a chronic deficiency. Infantile liquid probiotics are good because whatever she was inoculated with at birth may have been wiped out through the course of antibiotics, and it's really critical, especially in young children and infants, for their probiotic flora to be balanced so that they can have regular bowel movements. And when they're on formulas and when they eat fat from seed oils, and these seed oils cause further damage to the gut microbiota, specifically sunflower, safflower, canola, and soybean oils. Those are major, major offenders. You find them in almost every form of infant formula. In fact, in the United States, we are required to add seed oils to infant formulas. That's something that I'm actually working directly with Bobby Kennedy to change. So I would be happy to have my team put into the chat. I'm going to send you the specific infantile probiotic, the infantile colostrum, and the infantile gummies that she should be able to tolerate well. And I think you might see this entire situation go into remission.
Okay, and infantile still good for 5.5, 6 years old?
Yeah, they call it
Just
infantile to, yeah, they're prepubescent. There's prepubescent,
okay.
child, infantile. So right in that, I'm going to get the weight from you and then just give you some direction on which ones to take.
Okay, and I just look for that in the chat.
Yeah, look for that in the chat, or you can send an email to info@theultimatehuman.com. And
Okay.
since I'm not pulling it off the top of my head, I'm going to make sure that when we get off this chat, I'll get with the team and I'll make sure that I send you the links to those.
Yeah,
They're
I'll
not
email
supplements
that.
that
Thank
I
you.
have any affiliation with. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Captain. Lori, how you doing?
Phone off. Hi,
There we
guys.
go. Hi, Lori.
I have two questions. One is for my sister, my younger sister. She's got contamination OCD. I mean, it's really, really bad. She had it as a child. They diagnosed her when she was 10. She also has like anxiety, depression, and now they say she also has bipolar. She's overly medicated.
Mm-hmm.
She suffers terribly. And I just feel so helpless. Like I feel like if there's anything I can do for her. Does functional medicine, does that help OCD or help cure OCD?
Yes. Can I go to the whiteboard again for a second? I'm going to jump on the whiteboard here for a second because this is something that lots of us need to hear. So, okay, let's change this. So, in emotional states, we have like 3 tiers of emotional states. We have elevated, we have average, and we have what we call low emotional states, right? So low emotional states would be things like anger, jealousy, despair, sadness, right? Low emotional states. Average emotional states are states like happy, calm. Elevated emotional states are things like joy, elation, arousal, right? Libido, passion, like really elevated emotional states. So first, I just want to explain what they're saying when, oh, she has bipolar, she has OCD, she has anxiety, probably ADD and ADHD as well, because you can't have those 3 and not have attention deficit disorder. So first of all, in the whole realm of mood disorders, there are different neurotransmitters that are required to reach different emotional states. The main neurotransmitter of elevated emotional states is serotonin. So the fact that she doesn't experience these emotional states, arousal, elation, joy, passion, very often, already tells me that she is deficient in the neurotransmitter serotonin, and it already tells me that she has severe gut issues. You didn't tell me that, but I know that. I would be very, very surprised if she does not have very significant gut issues. She will tell you she has either regular gas, bloating, diarrhea, constipation, irritability, or cramping, or a combination of all of those things. Because the same neurotransmitter involved in mood and emotion is involved in gut motility. The other thing is, what is bipolar? It's an exchange between low emotional states and elevated emotional states without going through the normal cascade of emotion. So in other words, they go from being depressed, sad, irritable, angry to elated, joyful, aroused, or to really happy. They used to call this manic depression. And now they very often call it bipolar. But when we break down what is bipolar, what is manic depression, it is an exchange of emotional states that actually skip an entire category. So when we talk about like how do we manufacture emotion in the human body. Like, what is a mood? What is an emotional state? It is a collection of neurotransmitters bound to oxygen. So in other words, if I want to feel healthy emotional states, I go to the factory where emotions are made, and they are made right here in the gut. Serotonin, the main driver of mood, is made right here in the gut. 90% of the serotonin in your body is right here. If you don't have it here, you can't have it here. Dopamine is also made in the gut. If you don't have it here, you can't have it here. Dopamine is the main driver of behavior. Serotonin is the main driver of mood. When you have OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, what is OCD? It is disorganization in the mind. People that have a very active, very disorganized mind crave organization in their outside environment. Since I can't organize myself internally, I try to control my outside environment, and I hyper organize my outside environment. Now, this could have, on the low end, you're just a neat freak. On the high end, you have repetitive task repetition, that, like washing your hands incessantly.
She claws her skin. I mean, her skin, she claws herself. She washes herself so much, she's bleeding. I mean, it's like so bad.
Yes. Okay. So that's a severe obsessive compulsive disorder. That means that there's an enormous amount of disorganization in the mind, and she is craving organization in the outside environment. So the first thing I would do, I would get a genetic methylation test. Absolutely, positively, she is going to have these two gene mutations, MTH.
Okay, so I have that done. I have it, and I told her she should get that done too, because I have that.
She has to get it done. She has MTH, FR. She likely has a genetic mutation called COMT, catechol O-methyltransferase, because there's a category of neurotransmitters called catecholamines. Okay, they're norepinephrine, epinephrine, ephedrine, dopamine. These are the fight or flight neurotransmitters. When your body can't break down fight or flight neurotransmitters, you walk around in a fight or flight state. Okay? You walk around in a fearful state. That is the definition of anxiety. When we ask, if you were to ask your practitioner, what is anxiety? They're going to tell you, oh, it's a fear of the future. It's a sensation of impending doom. It's the sensation of a fear without the presence of a fear. What it is very specifically is high catecholamines. She has poor neurotransmitter production, poor neurotransmitter regulation, poor neurotransmitter breakdown. This leads to mood disorders, right? We describe people and categorize them based on the outcome of their mood. And now you have a mood disorder, you have an emotional disorder, you have a mental illness, but the truth is you have a deficiency in the raw material needed to create normopathic mood. So I always like to narrow these things down. Think of it like the spokes of a wheel, right? It is very unlikely that she has anxiety, right, was a mental condition, and a mood disorder, right, and ADD, and OCD, right? It's very unlikely that all of these systems broke down. What's likely is that one system broke down and caused everything. In the human body, things happen like a domino, not like the spokes of a wheel, right? In other words, one thing usually causes everything, instead of having multiple systems fail, right? So before I personally, and I'm not a physician, so this is not medical advice, before I accepted that someone had anxiety, a mood disorder, ADD or ADHD, and OCD, and gut issues and an autoimmune, right? I would say, what thing went wrong that caused everything? So I would start with a genetic methylation test. I actually developed one at 10X Health. I'm still a big fan of that test. I've exited that company, but my team can drop in the chat where to get that test. I formulated that test. I also formulated supplements to answer those deficiencies. And what you can do at a minimum is you can start to supplement for the deficiency that leads to adequate production of the neurotransmitters that cause these conditions, right? And it cannot hurt. None of these will interfere with medication. None of these will interfere with, treatment. If she's getting I'm gonna sit back down.
Well, she's on medication. So you're saying, so get that the motherfucker test, which this is what
yes,
it's called.
I didn't say
And-
motherfucker test. You said motherfucker
Yeah,
test.
that's what it's called. And the COMT test.
No, get a genetic methylation test. She's going to have both of those gene mutations. I'm going to bet my entire career.
Or get
She
a
has
genetic,
both gene mutations. Okay.
I'm sorry, get a genetic methylation test.
Genetic methylation test. Can you drop it into the chat for her? You did?
Oh, and then you'll show me.
Oh, okay. There's an entire section on this that Morgan is DMing you right now.
Okay.
So look for the DM from Morgan in the community.
Okay.
She just wrote you. Do you see it in the
Okay.
community?
And so those tests, and then when she gets those tests,
It's going to tell you exactly what to supplement for those deficiencies. And so once she knows which gene mutation she has, the supplements are very specific for those deficiencies. And then what we do is we start to produce healthy levels of serotonin, of dopamine. We start to downregulate and break down catecholamines, because most people think that you need the presence of a fear to feel fear, and you don't. If you or anyone you know has ever suffered from anxiety, they will tell you that I very often can't point to the trigger that's causing it, right? I don't have to walk to the edge of a 30th floor balcony and look over to feel, to feel fear. I can actually be eating dinner with my family, sitting in a very normal environment, and all of a sudden I'm overwhelmed with anxiety. Or I feel like I'm going to have a panic attack without a trigger. That is not coming from your outside environment. It is coming from your inside environment. We make neurotransmitters in our gut. These neurotransmitters form every emotional state that we can experience, every mood that we can experience, and they drive all of our behaviors. So when you have a behavioral or a mood disorder, you very often have a deficiency in the raw material that you need to create that emotional state. So in other words, if I was, anybody listening to this right now, if I was able to stick a syringe in your arm and suck out the serotonin, I can't do that, but hypothetically, if I was able to drop your serotonin, you would immediately begin to express depressive symptoms. If I was able to suck out the dopamine, you would immediately begin to engage in dopamine-seeking behavior, promiscuity, gambling, nicotine, alcohol, drugs, narcotics, something that would actually give your body the sense of normalcy, right? And so your sister is seeking normalcy, right? And
so where do I find? They're said in the chat box.
She DM'd you in the community.
Oh, DM.
You'll see a little inbox icon.
Inbox. So it's not in the chat box.
She's also going to email you. You have her email? Okay. She's also going to email you.
Yeah, that'd be great. And then real quick, another question, Joe, for me, you were talking about the IV. I have a functional doctor I go to, and he tested me a couple of years ago with urine for metals. And I had my lead was like 13, my mercury was like 6.
Oh.
And so he wanted to, I think growing up in New York City as a child, the old buildings, the pipes and everything,
Yep.
a lot to do with it. But
Also exhaust fumes. Yep.
to do chelation therapy, but it's very expensive. Do you think that's worth it, or should I try doing this detox?
I don't think that it's necessary. You can also do chelation orally. You don't have to actually do it intravenously. You can
tried
do
that
it
with
orally.
the pills, and it
Yeah.
did a little bit, but it still didn't get rid of the lead.
Okay, so on Friday, I am giving everyone in this VIP community the 12-week metal detox for free. It's an exact heavy metal detox protocol, the exact same one that I did. I showed you my testing up here and how I went from off the charts heavy metals. And these were some of the most toxic heavy metals you can get. I mean, this would have sent most people into an absolute tailspin, which is why I chose to do this challenge, because like I said, this is very near and dear to my heart. And I try to be as light on your wallet as I could possibly be. There are some supplements I think are required, but there's a lot that you can do and engage in that is not going to cost you a lot of money. So Friday, please look out for the 12-week metal detox. I'm just putting the final touches on that, but I'm giving it to you for free. If you follow that like a Bible for 3 months, your metal toxicity will get back into.
Do you think I need to get retested, or don't bother, just do this?
You can get retested for peace of mind, but I can I'll assure you that if you stick to it, you'll be metal free by the end.
Okay. And then can you exercise and do you still take your vitamins during this?
No question. Yeah, you absolutely want to exercise and take your vitamins during that time. Right.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
You're super welcome. Melanie? Melanie, you're muted. Okay, there you go.
Hi.
Hi, Melanie.
Hi, Gary. Thank you so much. This has been very informative, and I'm glad
Really?
that I'm
Thank you.
participating. I've followed you on YouTube, and so I'm a big fan.
Gotta subscribe. I need one more subscriber. I'm
did
trying to get to
subscribe.
500,000. I'm like, I'm really close.
I have a couple of questions. Hopefully, they'll be somewhat quick, but I have a tendency to suffer from vertigo from time to time. I've
Yes.
had it very severe. And then, like right now, and it only happens usually when I get up, where I get the lightheadedness and the spinning. And, this has been going on for several years, and I didn't know if it might specifically be related to like some of the things that we're talking about
Yes.
in this challenge. And what can I do I want to get rid of it? It's just so debilitating sometimes.
Yeah, so three things. You may want to write these down. Very often vertigo is related to something called vestibular, vestibular, vestibular inflammation. This is inflammation in an area close to the brainstem called the vestibula. And so if you don't have something called POTS, P-O-T-S, positional orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, POTS, capital P-O-T-S, which you can look up. POTS is where when you change positions, you get lightheaded or you get spinny, you get vertigo. Vertigo or dizziness at rest. So let's say that you're just sitting and watching this challenge and all of a sudden you feel like a little bit of woozy, like the room started to move a little bit. That's different from positional orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, which is where I go from being recumbent to standing, and that quick drop in my blood pressure makes me sort of dizzy or woozy. So very often mold, mycotoxins, and severe heavy metal toxicity do actually cause vertigo-like symptoms. If you were actually on the free challenge when I was talking about my symptoms, what actually triggered me to get this testing in the first place, it was when I was waking up in the morning and getting to a standing position, I felt woozy. When I would exercise intensely, I would get tingling and I actually would feel woozy. Luckily, I knew enough to link that back to metal toxicity symptoms and not some kind of massive neurological issue, or I probably would have been way down the path with a neurologist by now with no hope. So yes, mold, mycotoxins, and metals can mimic vestibular inflammation or cause vestibular inflammation, which is directly related to those kinds of dizziness spells that you're, now look, I'm not saying it's 100% chance, but yes, the whole reason why I'm so excited about this challenge is that people like yourself that have suffered from lifelong unexplainable issues or decades-long unexplainable issues may have something that they can treat in one of these four categories: mold, mycotoxin, heavy metal, parasite, virus.
Okay. Kind of related to that, I was going to ask a question about viruses. My understanding is that you can never really get rid of viruses, but you can minimize the impact. And is that one of the things that will happen as a result of this protocol?
Yes, that's largely true. So when I say this, people freak out, but it's very true. Only 60% of your DNA inside every cell in your body is human DNA. 40% of every DNA strand in your body is viral. 40%. So that means if I was to have a 10-inch long strand of DNA, 4 inches of it is non-human viral DNA woven into your DNA. Every time your cells replicate, that DNA sort of unwinds and rezips. It unzips and it rezips, and it unzips and it rezips. This is called replication. We replicate 300 billion cells every single day. And 300 billion times a day, your body silences these viruses. So if you had mono in 8th grade and your body is unable to silence the monovirus, it comes back as Epstein-Barr as an adult. So when you get Epstein-Barr, that EBV, that is not an infection that you caught. That is an infection you always had. It's just like if you had chickenpox as a child, your body has been silencing chickenpox for decades. You run the immune system down. Now, all of a sudden, you have shingles. The JV virus shows up as multifocal leukoencephalopathy. And so what happens is very often later in life, the viral pathogens are the old viruses that we can no longer silence, right? And so that's why it's really important to keep a healthy immune system. This is a walk in the park. It sounds crazy that your immune system 300 billion times a day could stop these viruses from replicating. But that is God's magnificence, that he actually designed a machine that could handle that number of calculations like a walk in the park. So when our immune system gets run down, a lot of these viruses raise their ugly heads. So a lot of this detox protocol is helping our immune system to put these back, silence these viruses again. If you've ever had antibody testing, like for example, if you were vaccinated or you had COVID, how can I draw your blood today and still see that you have COVID? Well, because your body now has antibodies to that virus. It's still silencing that virus. How could I draw your blood and see that you have antibodies to mono? And you didn't have mono since you were in 8th grade and now you're in your 50s or your 60s because you still have the antibodies to that virus. And so a lot of the testing that we're doing is looking for those viral pathogens that are active and helping the immune system put them into remission. But the other reason to look at these mold, mycotoxins, metals, is because the immune system lights up against them, right? So when you distract the immune system with mold and mycotoxins and heavy metals, here comes the Epstein-Barr. Here comes the recurrent Lyme. Here comes the shingles. Here comes the West Nile or JV virus, or all of these things that otherwise wouldn't raise their ugly head. You get one co-infection like mold, mycotoxin, heavy metal, and it causes the old infection to resurge. And so in your case, and everybody listening here, I'm really excited for you guys to go through this testing if you want to do it. And see if any of these underlying causes could be triggering some of the symptoms that you've had no answer to for, in your case, over a decade.
Okay, two other really quick questions.
Okay.
First, I started taking H2 tabs and I love it.
I love it too.
It got me off of coffee. And the reason why that was important is because I can't drink coffee without some kind of sweetener. And I have used allulose and xylitol, and I didn't know what you thought of those as sweeteners. And this last question is, I also like the Energy Bits spirulina, and I don't know if you have any comments on that particular product.
Yeah, so the owner of Energy Bits Spirulina is actually my neighbor. She lives in the building next door to me with my daughter. So I've teased her that I'm going to put a zip line in between our balconies. But cholera, spirulina, I'm fans of those. They're great. Also, the two sweeteners that I'm a fan of are allulose and organic monk fruit. Watch the monk fruit to make sure that it is pure monk fruit, not with all of the monk fruit is usually mixed with something called erythritol. And I would prefer that you just use pure organic monk fruit without the erythritol. And then also allulose is another great sweetener.
But not xylitol? Xylitol?
Not xylitol.
Okay.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Beautiful. All right, we got 10 minutes left. I'm going to try to get through 2 more questions. So if you can, keep them short and concise so I can really try to make this happen. Oh, hi there.
Hi, Gary. I wanted to really thank you. Your guide has been extremely useful. And based on your recommendation last time we discussed, I took a Vibrant Wellness test for all of these heavy metals. And in addition to that, neurozoomer and tick-borne diseases as well. And the reason for my high inflammation was found here. I have more than 10, CRP is more than 10. And I have everything like high heavy metals, mold. And actually I have Lyme disease. And then with that, Epstein-Barr and West Nile and everything is active. So
yes.
Yeah. So the good thing is we found the
I'm so excited for you. I remember when your husband and you first came on before the testing months ago. You've been VIPs for a long time.
Yes.
It's Sympath, right?
Yes, you're right.
And
I'm
I
not.
remember your husband and you came on, and we recommended doing this testing because you had such a crazy myriad of symptoms.
Yes.
Now we have an enemy, right? Now we have a villain, and we can develop a plan to go get rid of this villain. I pray that you stay engaged in this VIP community, because you are a classic example of what Americans are facing that don't know what's wrong with them. And now that we have an enemy, I'm going to help you. I'm going to stay close to your case, and we're going to walk our way out of this, so that in a few months from now, nothing would make me happier for you to come back on and share with my audience that you no longer have the autoimmune, the joint pain, the brain fog, the other conditions that you've been suffering with while you've been taking pharmaceutical medication to treat an issue that you did not have, that was caused by one of these toxins. So I was actually kind of hoping you were going to be on here, because I'm very familiar with your case, and I'm happy that you're being so vulnerable and sharing it with our community.
And I'm definitely, I would be willing to share all my test results too.
Yeah.
Before and after. And one of the things you've always talked about, I always had Hashimoto thyroiditis, and you mentioned about the heavy metals link, and it confirms in my case. I have heavy lead and arsenic and other some 7 or 8 metals.
Yeah.
And so we know that. But one good thing is, for when I started taking selenium, my dry skin and all has reduced. And
yes.
The selenium seemed to help. Otherwise, I would like to dose off many times, and I'm not able to get up early. So something has improved there. And I'm also following whatever you're saying, Gary, like with the mountain. I stopped I started the detox. Your detox guide was available even before a month. So our results came around mid-May, and then May 24th, I started the detox already, the heavy metal, because my doctor was very concerned seeing my results. He was, because I have an active brain injury as well, because of all these viruses and parasites.
Yes.
And so he wanted to treat, and before treating Lyme, you have to address other things, because so we started off this, and your guide was very handy, because the doctor gave me the binder, the same thing that you gave, like
he did. Oh, great! Wow, he's a good doctor.
Yes, Pactasol. In fact, he also suggests, I want to discuss about one of my question is advanced modalities that he discussed. So I've read your guide twice, highlighted like you said, and then I also wanted to share that all the scores that you've designed for mold and heavy metal, it was dot on, like it was on the spot. Mine was over 20s, and it actually completely, it confirms. My test results confirms exactly what.
Thank you.
Your thing you mentioned. And so I've started exactly following it, but I've started with a very, very small dose to see how I react. So I started with modified pectin, only with 3 capsules, 2.4 grams. And I see I'm losing weight. I never could lose my weight at all.
Yes, you're losing water, right? You weren't fat, you were water retentive. That's one of the side effects of mold and metal toxicity, is retaining water, because what does it do? It throws off your estrogen balance. Estrogen rises. Estrogen's primary role is to bind water. So you start bloating with water, thinking that you're fat. You try to diet your way around it. The diet doesn't work, because the diet doesn't get rid of excess water. But as you actually start to supplement with the right nutrients, now what you'll find is your hormones are beginning to balance, and the water is leaving.
So
this is super exciting.
And I also taking the glutathione, like what you said. And during this detox period, I'm only drinking Mountain Valley spring water, because I even though I have
I need to get an affiliate link with all these providers. I probably doubled Mountain Valley stock,
And I also want to talk about the circadian rhythm for other benefit. That looking at the sunlight and trying to get the sunset at least like 1 hour before the sunset has really helped my circadian rhythm. I'm able to sleep on time and get up on by 5 o'clock and without.
Thank you so much for sharing this. It's powerful to see these habits really start changing your life. Whoa, did we accidentally cut her off? Sorry, we hit the wrong button there for a second.
Okay. I'll start with my questions. With the
Gotcha.
advanced modalities, my doctor is pretty good as well. He suggested some of the things while taking the binder, take the colonics and stuff like that. And he mentioned few things he's going to discuss with me about other options for me.
You can give your doctor my guide. I mean, just give him a printed copy of the guide. I'm perfectly fine with that.
Okay, thanks. I was thinking about it, but I wasn't
100%.
sure.
Yeah. No, listen, I write these things for the world. I mean, but that goes for anybody on this VIP. I mean, please share this. Even if look, I know you paid for VIP, but I mean, give it to your friends, your colleagues, your coworkers, your family, anybody that you love. I mean, I'm really trying to make a major impact, and there's so much intentionality that go into these, and there's so many people like yourself that were truly suffering. I remember the very first conversation with you and your husband, and you were really, really suffering, and they just don't have any hope. And so if we can get this into the hands of more and more people, they can just follow it on their own.
Thank you so much. So I've also taken an appointment with Dr. Jess Petros as well.
Oh, she's amazing.
Based on what your connection, we are just following your method, and we have been long time following you. So I've taken the 10x genetic test too. So I have whatever the speakers discussed, I have MTHFR as well as COMT, and from both the parents. My doctor suggested I can couple of options is daily IV of glutathione, and then weekly phosphatidylcholine.
Yeah, phosphatidylcholine. Okay, so the weekly phosphatidylcholine is great. Daily glutathione IVs, they're also okay, but that's pretty intense. I would prefer that you do twice a day raw nutrition glutathione in a liposomal version.
Okay.
Or get something called Gluteryl Plus, GLUTERYL. Okay.
Yes, Gary. Because based on your podcast, I've already purchased that.
Yeah, that's Dr. Patel.
And then liposomal glutathione silver. I'm taking that on a daily basis during the detox. And so the other option he was saying, therapeutic plasma exchange was another.
Yes, that's an amazing treatment. It's not inexpensive. That's an expensive one. I've had it done twice. I was supposed to get it done at the end of this month before going to Australia, but my Australia trip got moved. So, but yes, therapeutic plasma exchange. I've had it done at Next Health. You can get therapeutic plasma exchange that will dramatically accelerate the time frame. Again, guys, I just want to point out that these are not necessary. They will just shorten the time frame. So there's extra expense to shorten the time frame, but your body is capable of doing this on your own. But if you really want to shorten the time frame, you just you can do therapeutic plasma exchange.
And then the other one was ozone EBOO, which you have mentioned, explained it in detail. And then he was mentioning about, sorry.
Go ahead.
So the hydrogen gas mission, like he was suggesting something like a brown gas, because brown gas hydrogen oxygen mission. So that will pump like 2000 ml per minute of hydrogen and 1000 ml per minute of oxygen. So
okay, so the Brown's gas, I'm not as big of a fan of Brown's gas. Brown's gas is 60 hydrogen, 40 oxygen. You're better to actually do the full dosage of hydrogen gas because you're respiring anyway. You use a nasal cannulus with the hydrogen gas. All of the studies that show the clinical efficiency of hydrogen gas are not Brown's gas related. The majority of the proponents of Brown's gas are making hypothetical assumptions based on combining studies that didn't actually look at Brown's gas. If he has a Brown's gas study, I'd be happy to look at it. There are hordes of studies using oxygen, hyperbarics, hordes of studies using hydrogen gas specifically, and the majority, if not all of the benefits from breathing Brown's gas come from the hydrogen. So I would just do hydrogen gas and not Brown's gas.
Okay, that would work better because it is little this is more expensive. So
Yes.
out of it's just he's going to discuss with me coming Thursday. So I was thinking.
I like this guy, whoever he is.
Yeah, he is actually, he's educated from Harvard and Oxford. He's from Florida as well. Hippocrates Wellness Institute.
Okay.
So,
Well, great. I'm sorry I have to move on because I got to try to get one more question.
okay.
But I am going to stay close to your case and really follow this because your journey is not unlike the majority of people on this VIP group.
Okay, sounds good. So, would you recommend weekly, out of this, which one would you recommend me to?
Weekly phosphatidylcholine,
Okay.
hydrogen gas, and I would do the glutathione orally or transdermally. I wouldn't go in every day for IVs.
Okay, okay. So,
It's too intense.
compared to the plasma exchange, weekly phosphatidyl might be.
Yes, and therapeutic plasma exchange will dramatically move the needle. It'll
So I
accelerate
can
things
do in
about
both
14 weeks.
combination, the weekly one and the therapeutic plasma exchange.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you so much, Gary.
You're so welcome. Anastasia. Hi, Anastasia. I think you're muted.
Do you hear me now?
Yep, I can hear you now.
Perfect. All right. I'll try to make it quick.
Okay.
So it's all started with COVID. I got crazy anxiety, panic attacks, etc. Before that, I also had some UTIs and, minor things that like yeast infections.
Yeah, Detox.
And after that, I developed Candida, Klebsiella, H. pylori, and bunch of other stuff that like just, like oxidative stress. What else was there? Methylation issues. And I just don't know honestly where to start because I go to one doctor, they say, oh, you have to detox first. But even when I go to sauna, I just get crazy Herx reaction or whatever you call it. It's just insane to me. And then when I start to do methylated B vitamins, I do I do the test again, and all my vitamins are really low. And they say, okay, do the metal detox, and it also includes the sauna or like body rollers. I do nothing helps, and I really don't know what to do at this point. I spent 2 years and enormous amount of money, and I'm still at where I started, even worse. And the toxic burden too got worse. I just whenever I talk to everybody and doctors around, they just say, "Oh, that's weird." That's all the question I have. I mean, that's all the answer I have. And my loved ones think it's all in your head. And it just I cannot work every day. I just don't know if I'm gonna feel okay or just I'm gonna be crazy anxious and get all this stuff. And when I try to detox, I get the crazy I guess toxic burden where I also develop this thing in my neck. I don't know, it's just I got a bulging disc, but I don't know if it's from that. I just know it's like all over all over the place.
Yeah, so this makes perfect sense to me. And this is a classic reason why we talked in the first 2 days today. We're really talking about detox tomorrow, but in the first 2 days, we really talked about opening the drainage pathways. Because exactly what you're talking about doing, you get into a sauna and have a Herxheimer reaction. Herx reaction is just toxins are being dumped, out of the tissues into the blood, and now they have no way to exit, and you have swelling, itching, numbness, rashes, chest tightness, what have you. You have a Herx reaction to the toxicity, and then eventually they're resorbed back into the tissue, and if you dump them back out, you have another Herx reaction. So the fact that you said that this began with COVID is very, very interesting. I talked about this earlier, but I sort of glossed past it. This is a really critical point. So maybe folks listening could take some notes. So depending on how your body clears spike protein, people fall into 3 categories: whether you've had vaccine and been vaccine injured or not, or whether you've had COVID and have developed a long COVID or not. It doesn't mean that everybody that gets COVID gets long COVID. Everybody that gets vaccinated has a negative reaction. Not everybody that got vaccinated got myocarditis or pericarditis. Not everybody that got COVID even had symptoms. Some were asymptomatic. Some actually went to the hospital and got ventilated. Some died from the cytokine storm. Same infection, massively different outcomes. What causes the different outcomes? What causes the different outcomes, very specifically in COVID and vaccine injury, are how well your body clears the spike protein. The reason why you didn't have these conditions prior to COVID is because you didn't have the spike protein toxicity prior to COVID. So what happens with spike protein, it's produced in the cell. Messenger RNA from the DNA tells the cell to produce spike protein. It eventually builds up. It spills out of the cell into the serum of the blood. It passes through the serum of the blood and it embeds itself into the arterial wall. Now, why is that important? Because when you get into the arterial wall, there is something called the endothelium or the glycocalyx. Okay, that's the lining of this arterial wall. Okay, so imagine a tube and it has a lining on the inside of it. If that gets inflamed, which it does if you do not clear spike protein well, now you have interrupted the most important blood-brain barrier in the body. Contents from the blood cannot leave the blood and enter the tissue. Waste from the tissue cannot leave the tissue and enter the blood. And why is this important? Because it interrupts the transmission of neurotransmitters. It interrupts the breakdown of neurotransmitters, specifically catecholamines. That is the definition of anxiety. It reduces the ability for the body to eliminate waste from the tissue into the bloodstream. That is the definition of chronic fatigue syndrome, which I would absolutely bet my career that you have days of crushing fatigue where you're just exhausted. As you move downstream, you interrupt the capacity through the blood-brain barrier exchange to exchange the proper nutrients to make hormones. So you'll find if you did hormone testing, Dutch testing, or other testing, your hormones are off. If you are doing anything to measure your sleep, you'll see that your deep and REM phases of sleep are not adequate. No matter what you do, you can take magnesium, which I suggest. You can actually take tranquilitics like trazodone or zolpidem nitrate or diazepam or Ambien or even Xanax, and you will find that you're not able to get into the deep and REM stages of sleep. I could keep naming symptoms, but you'll find that you fatigue early during exercise. You'll also find that occasionally or very often you'll have diffuse joint pain. You just feel achy, especially when you get out of bed in the morning and you go to take your first pee. The soles of your feet and your ankles will be really kind of sore. You'll almost kind of hobble to the bathroom because of the joint pain. And then as you start to get moving throughout the day, it becomes a little bit easier and the pain kind of goes away. So does all that sound?
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
why all of a sudden did the world go to hell in a handbasket, right? So first of all, you did not develop a mood disorder, an autoimmune disease, a diffuse joint pain, a rheumatoid, a chronic fatigue syndrome, a fibromyalgia. You didn't develop this diffuse myriad of symptoms independently. One thing went wrong that caused everything. So what I would recommend, and I would investigate, is doing something called a spike protein detox. This is a very low level, very simple one. You can also do the vibrant wellness testing. You're going to have a lot of these things are going to be high, but we can't go straight to detox with you. We have to first clear the pathways. Even before we start methylated multivitamins from a gene test, magnesium, we can't trust anything to be absorbed in your body. You have to use routes like transdermal, intravenous, or sublingual. Those are the routes that you need to trust. Other things will not get absorbed in your body. Sublingual, transdermal, or intravenous. The second thing I would recommend is I want you to Google Dr. Peter McCullough, McCollough, Dr. Peter McCullough, spike protein detox. He is one of the leading cardiologist in the world. He's one of the most published cardiologists on all of COVID and long COVID symptoms. He's analyzed, he's done more autopsies and published more research on spike protein detoxification and the impact of spike protein on cardiomyopathies. And he has a spike protein detox supplement. It's very cheap. I want to say it's like $40 a month, maybe $48 a month. Nattokinase, bromelains, thymulins, and he has actually run a clinical trial on these. So I really do trust those. I would do nothing other than the spike protein detox for several weeks 6 to 8 weeks. And then I would begin to supplement with methylated multivitamins, magnesium, minerals, hydration, amino acids, because your body will be able to absorb and accept those things. And if you'd like, I will have my team if you send me an email to info@theultimatehuman, I'll have my team give you some suggestions on some good sublingual and transdermal patches that you can use in the meantime to get some of those nutrients into the bloodstream and get past the first pass metabolism.
Or please, yeah. And then as far as iron too, that would work with iron as well, just because when I take iron, internally, the candida and all other bugs, they have a party down
You're going
there.
to get instantly
Yeah.
constipated,
Yeah.
and it's going to upset your stomach. You're going to you're going to feel like your stomach starts burning, or
I
you get
gain
acid
weight.
cramps.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So we'll do that too.
Thank you
Absolutely.
so much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, you're super welcome. Oh man, I love these guys. Wow. Thank you guys. VIPs today, I feel like we crossed a real threshold. I'm sorry if I take a little bit longer on some of these questions than others, but I know that there's a lot of you listening that have either loved ones or you're in similar situations. So I always want to be as thorough as I possibly can. I really hope that you got value out of today. You went from guessing to knowing, and from symptoms now to data. What I really love is some of the VIPs that have been with us a long time are starting to get to the healing side of their journey. So for new VIPs, it should be really inspiring for you to listen to some of these people, like the woman that we just had on before, the last woman who just had this myriad of symptoms that nobody could figure out, and now we found the pathogens. So we're just trying to go from confusion to clarity. And now you understand that your health issues aren't mysterious. They're measurable. They have names, they have sources, and they have solutions. That's the word that I'm trying to get to the world. So before we go, let me announce our VIP gift box winners and spotlight them. I've been talking for 3 hours. So Nicole Rush, I hope you have not left, because you're our first winner. Calvin Brown and Lori Scully. So can we find Nicole Rush? I want to see your face, Nicole. You need to start your camera, Nicole. You just won a $500 gift box. Is that you? Hey there, you're muted. I love your sign in the background that says badass.
There's my husband down there too.
All right. Hey, badass. You just got a $500 gift box, man.
He's the badass right there.
That's what I would say about my wife, too. Are you on a walking treadmill, too?
Yes.
Oh, you guys are all making me feel bad. So was the previous woman in Naples. But I just wanted to say congratulations. Thank you for being a VIP. Thank you for trusting me, to go on this health journey with you. And make sure that my team gets your contact information, and we'll get that out to you, okay?
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye, badass. Calvin Brown.
He doesn't have his camera.
Calvin, you don't have your camera on either. What's with you guys hiding? Hiding from Joe Biden. He used to have a T-shirt that said
And
that.
then Lori Scully, what's her name? Does she?
If we can't get Calvin Brown, can we?
Lori's.
And Lori left us. Oh, Lori, shame on you. I might have to give your gift box away. She's not on. So should we pick another one?
How? No.
Is it not one of those things where you got to be present to win kind of thing?
No,
All right. So Calvin Brown, if you're on, I'd love to say hi to you and congratulate you. All right. He's not starting his camera.
Can you hear me?
Calvin, your audio is on, so we're at least going to throw you up.
Yes.
Perfect. I apologize. My laptop, for some odd reason, did not come with a webcam. So
I remember my first laptop, 1972. Come on. Anyway, Calvin, congratulations, brother. Just make sure my team gets the proper contact and mailing details for you, and I'll get a